Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat in absolute silence and didn't feel anxious about it? Think about that. Not scrolling, not planning, not performing. Just being, with no screen, no noise, no performance. If that question makes you uneasy, you're not alone. We live in a world addicted to noise, a world where even our moments of relaxation come with background chaos. You wake up to an alarm blaring, scroll through tragedy and comparison before your feet hit the floor, and by the time you sip your morning coffee, your nervous system is already bracing for war. Your calendar doesn't have room to breathe. Your thoughts race. Your attention fractures. You're productive, but are you present? You're surviving, but are you soothed? You're connected to everyone, but somehow disconnected from yourself. Here's a truth most people never admit. In a world that won't shut up, silence can feel terrifying. Not because it's empty, but because in that quiet, we meet everything we've been running from. I know that feeling intimately. I've worn the mask of the high-functioning, well-adjusted, always there for everyone achiever. I've smiled while quietly unraveling inside. I've drowned in overstimulation while appearing in control. And I've reached a point where I couldn't hear my own voice anymore because the volume of the world had completely swallowed it. But here's what no one tells you. The way out isn't louder. It's not stronger in the traditional sense. It's not about pushing harder or speaking over the noise. It's about quiet strength, not weakness, not passivity, not detachment, but a steady, unshakable resilience that doesn't need to shout to be powerful. A kind of inner solidity that allows you to meet life's chaos with calm eyes and a steady breath. A way of existing that's deeply rooted, profoundly intentional, and radically peaceful. This audiobook is not just a guide, it's an invitation to reclaim your peace without escaping the world, to rediscover your voice without raising your volume, to reset your nervous system so you can stop surviving and start living. In Quiet Strength, Finding Peace in a Loud World, you'll learn how to build emotional resilience without burnout, cultivate silence without fear, and navigate chaos without losing yourself. You'll discover the practical tools, the neuroscience, and the soul-level shifts that allow you to anchor into calm no matter what life throws at you. And no, you don't need to meditate in a cave or move to the mountains. This is about real life, your life, with bills, relationships, deadlines, and digital noise. It's about finding the kind of peace that walks with you into the boardroom, the kitchen, the commute, and the conversation. The kind that holds you when the world doesn't. The kind that becomes your baseline, not your vacation. By the end of this audiobook, you'll walk differently, speak differently, breathe differently. You'll be able to access clarity in confusion, calm in conflict, and confidence without arrogance. Not because the noise disappears, but because you'll have stopped needing it to. Let that sink in. What would your life look like if peace was your default, not your reward? That's where we're going. This is more than self-help. It's soul restoration. A practical, grounded journey home to yourself, one quiet breath at a time. So take a deep breath. Really, right now. Inhale. Exhale. You just took your first step. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Noise All Around, Living in the Age of Overstimulation. There's a peculiar weight in the air these days, a kind of invisible pressure that most of us can't quite name, but we feel it every day. It starts before we even open our eyes. Buzzes, pings, the glow of screens greeting us like impatient messengers demanding attention. For many, the first act of the day isn't a stretch or a prayer or a breath of morning air. It's a scroll, a tap, a swipe. Within seconds, our minds are flooded with information. News of distant tragedies, updates on people we barely know, suggestions on how to improve ourselves, alerts about things we didn't ask for, And without even realizing it, we are pulled into the rhythm of reaction. There's no space for intention anymore, only reflex. We are wired into a system that profits from our distraction, and the more plugged in we are, the less rooted we feel. This constant connection, ironically, disconnects us from ourselves, from those nearest to us, and from the very moment we inhabit. There's always something to respond to, something to consume, something to anticipate. Our days are no longer built on a foundation of presence, but on a scaffolding of alerts, to-do lists, and digital noise. This isn't just a technological problem, it's a deeply human one. Because overstimulation doesn't just crowd our calendars or hijack our attention spans, it chips away at our capacity to be still, to feel, to think deeply. And when that happens, we start to lose touch with the quieter, more intuitive parts of ourselves. We begin to confuse motion with meaning, activity with purpose. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor, as if being perpetually tired is proof of our value. The illusion of productivity through busyness. Our culture worships busyness like a religion. We idolize the hustle, romanticize the grind, and equate nonstop motion with success. How are you? Has become less of a question and more of an invitation to list everything we're juggling. The more chaotic your schedule, the more accomplished you must be. At least, that's what we're led to believe. But beneath the surface of this glorified busyness lies a different truth. Much of what we call productivity is simply noise in disguise. Tasks completed without presence, goals chased without joy, days filled without meaning. This is not true progress. It's a performance. And over time, it leaves us depleted. There's a difference between meaningful work and compulsive activity. One nourishes the soul, the other drains it. But when we're caught in the whirlwind of constant doing, it becomes almost impossible to tell the difference. We start to believe that unless we're accomplishing something tangible, we're wasting time. Rest feels like laziness. Contemplation feels indulgent. And so we push ourselves harder, faster, further, rarely asking if the destination we're sprinting toward is even one we desire. This illusion of productivity doesn't just rob us of peace. It starves our creativity, dampens our relationships, and buries our most important questions under a mountain of deadlines. Eventually, we forget what it feels like to move slowly and intentionally. We forget how to listen to the quieter voices inside us. Even our leisure time has been colonized by this productivity mindset. A walk isn't just a walk. It must be tracked, shared, optimized. Reading a book becomes a checkbox. Conversations are shortened, multitasked, interrupted. We speak in bullet points, listen in half-thoughts, and wonder why we feel disconnected. The truth is, we weren't designed for this kind of pace. The human nervous system isn't meant to be in a state of constant alert. Our minds need silence. Our hearts need stillness. Our souls need margin. Yet we've created a society that treats these needs as optional, luxuries for the privileged or the undisciplined. But peace is not a luxury. It is a necessity. And reclaiming it requires that we confront the lies we've been sold about what it means to be successful. How noise becomes normal. What begins as a temporary accommodation can quietly become a permanent reality. We didn't intend for noise to define our lives. It just crept in, a little at a time. At first, we answered emails at night to catch up. Then we started bringing work home. Then weekends disappeared. Social media began as a way to connect, then became a way to compete. Notifications, once helpful, became constant. We didn't choose this pace all at once. It was a slow erosion of stillness, disguised as modern life. And now, many of us find silence unnerving. We fill every empty space with something: music, podcasts, scrolling, talking. Not because we're curious, but because quiet feels uncomfortable. This discomfort with silence reveals something deeper. We've become strangers to our own thoughts. In the quiet, we're forced to confront feelings we've ignored, questions we've postponed, truths we've avoided. So, we stay busy, stay plugged in, stay distracted. But noise, over time, reshapes our inner world. It makes us reactive instead of reflective. It trains us to seek external validation instead of internal clarity. And perhaps most dangerously, it convinces us that peace is unnatural, that anxiety is just the price of admission for modern life. But it doesn't have to be this way. When noise becomes normal, we stop questioning its effects. We accept burnout as inevitable. We see stress as strength. We judge ourselves by our output, forgetting that we are more than what we do. And in this distorted reality, quiet people are often overlooked. Calm is mistaken for weakness. But there is a strength in stillness that the world has forgotten, a power in the quiet that doesn't demand attention, but earns it. The real tragedy is not that we live in a loud world, but that we've internalized its volume. We carry the chaos within us, even when we're alone. Our minds replay the noise, our bodies store the tension, our spirits absorb the rush. The normalization of noise has also reshaped our relationships. Depth is sacrificed for efficiency. Intimacy is replaced with updates. We text instead of talk, scan instead of see, react instead of relate. Conversations are shortened by impatience. Vulnerability is muted by distraction. And yet, we wonder why we feel lonely. Why we ache for connection even in crowded rooms. The answer is not more noise. It's not more stimulation, more achievement, more distraction. The answer is less. Not less life, but less clutter. Not less ambition, but less disconnection. To reclaim peace, we must first recognize how far we've drifted from it and how normal that drift has begun to feel. Awakening to the need for silence. At some point, maybe in a moment of exhaustion, maybe in a rare pause, you sense it. A longing that rises quietly, unannounced. It's not for more time or more money or more recognition. It's for less noise, less pressure, less pretending. This is the awakening, the inner whisper that says, there has to be another way. You may not know what it looks like yet, but you feel it. The pull towards silence, towards stillness, towards simplicity. It's a subtle yearning, but once you hear it, you can't unhear it. It's the sound of your soul remembering itself. This awakening doesn't come with a roadmap. There's no applause, no productivity metrics, no likes or shares. But it is the beginning of something sacred. It is the moment you begin to return, not to an outdated way of life, but to a forgotten way of being. A way that values presence over performance. A way that listens more than it speaks. A way that honors the quiet spaces between words, between thoughts, between breaths. The journey toward quiet strength doesn't start with a declaration. It starts with a decision, a small quiet choice to pause, to unplug, to listen, not to the world, but to yourself. This silence isn't emptiness, it's space. Space to feel what's real, space to notice what matters, space to remember who you are beneath all the expectations. And in that space, something powerful begins to grow. Not the kind of power that dominates, but the kind that endures. Quiet strength is not about shrinking or hiding. It's about standing grounded in a world that's always rushing. It's about moving at the speed of intention. It's about leading with presence, and it starts with a return to silence. Silence gives us back to ourselves. It gives us clarity when the world demands confusion. It gives us breath when life feels suffocating. It gives us truth when everything else feels like noise. But to access it, we must first trust it. We must learn to sit in the discomfort of the quiet, to resist the urge to fill every gap, to let go of the need to always be doing. This is not easy, but it is essential. Because the more we practice silence, the more we realize it's not empty. It's full of insight, of peace, of power. And in that fullness, we rediscover the strength we've been searching for all along. Chapter 2. Understanding. Quiet strength. What is quiet strength? Quiet strength is a concept rarely celebrated in a world obsessed with noise. We're conditioned to see strength as something explosive, loud, bold, aggressive. But there is a deeper strength that doesn't demand attention. It doesn't shout over others or rush to fill silence. Instead, it holds steady. It listens first. It acts not from impulse, but from understanding. Quiet strength is rooted in presence rather than performance. It doesn't seek control, yet it exerts influence through calm, clear energy. It may not be the voice that speaks the most, but it is often the one that resonates the longest. In this way, quiet strength becomes not just a personal virtue, but a cultural correction. A call to remember that power does not always have to roar. When we speak of quiet strength, we are not talking about weakness disguised as patience or passivity mistaken for peace. This kind of strength is intentional. It is anchored. It's the ability to remain composed in the midst of chaos, not because one is detached, but because one has cultivated depth. It's the force behind those who move with care and clarity, even when the world is spinning fast around them. You see it in the parent who calmly comforts a crying child, in the leader who listens more than they speak, in the friend who offers presence instead of platitudes. Quiet strength isn't about shrinking to avoid conflict. It's about rising without creating unnecessary friction. It's knowing who you are so deeply that you no longer need to prove it. This strength is not always immediately recognized. In fact, it's often underestimated or overlooked, especially in environments where the loudest person is assumed to be the most confident or capable. But quiet strength is not about visibility. It's about impact. It's about how your presence shifts the energy in a room, not because you demand attention, but because you offer something rare: steadiness, groundedness, stillness. In a world addicted to extremes, this is a quiet revolution. It's not the kind that shakes buildings. It's the kind that builds foundations. Unseen maybe, but absolutely essential. Loudness isn't leadership. There's a pervasive myth in modern culture that to lead, you must be loud. That volume equals vision. That those who speak the most know the most. This belief has led us into a model of leadership that prizes charisma over character, performance over presence. But true leadership that lasts and lifts others, is rarely the loudest voice in the room. It is the one that listens deeply, observes patiently, and responds wisely. Loudness often masks insecurity. It tries to prove, but leadership, in its truest form, doesn't need to be performed. It is embodied. It's not about controlling others, but about creating space where others can rise. Many of the most transformative leaders in history and in everyday life were not the ones constantly in the spotlight. They were the ones who carried clarity within them. They didn't need to shout because their actions spoke. They didn't dominate conversations because they understood the value of listening. They didn't command with fear, but with calm conviction. These are the teachers who remember your name years later, the mentors who ask how you're really doing, the colleagues who lift the room simply by being fully present. Leadership rooted in quiet strength doesn't push others forward. It walks with them. It doesn't preach from a pedestal. It speaks from beside you. When loudness becomes our default image of leadership, we begin to mistrust our own stillness. We start to believe that if we are not assertively promoting ourselves or constantly offering opinions, we are somehow failing to lead. But the truth is, leadership isn't measured by how much noise you make. It's measured by how much trust you build. And trust is a quiet thing. It grows in consistency, in kindness, in listening without judgment. Quiet leaders may not be the first to speak, but they are often the ones others turn to when things fall apart. Because their strength has been proven not by volume, but by reliability, not by command, but by compassion. In redefining leadership, we must make space for a broader expression of strength, one that honors depth over display, humility over hype. This is not about rejecting boldness or charisma, but about recognizing that they are not the only forms of power. There is a courage in silence, a discipline in restraint, a strength in stillness. These are the qualities that sustain leadership long after the spotlight fades. And they are cultivated not in the noise of performance, but in the quiet of self-awareness and intention. The inner power of calm presence. There is a certain kind of power that doesn't shout for attention. It simply is. You can feel it when you're around someone who is genuinely present, deeply rooted in themselves. They aren't performing. They aren't trying to impress. They are just there fully with you. This kind of presence has a calming effect. It slows the frantic energy in the room. It invites others to breathe more deeply. It allows conversations to become more authentic, and it's not something you can fake. Calm presence comes from within. It is born of self-knowledge, of emotional regulation, of intentional living. And in a world full of hyperstimulation and surface interaction, it is increasingly rare and deeply needed. The inner power of calm presence is not passive, it's active. It requires a level of awareness and discipline that most people never develop because it demands we do something deeply countercultural. Slow down. It asks us to become aware of our own inner states, to take responsibility for our energy, to notice how we enter a space and what we contribute to it. When you are truly present, you're not just hearing, you're listening. You're not just reacting, you're responding. You're not just filling space, you're honoring it. And this is powerful. Not flashy, not dramatic, but transformative. This kind of presence is not just beneficial, it's healing for yourself and for those around you. It creates space for authenticity. It allows others to exhale, to drop their guard, to feel seen. In a world where so many are performing, being with someone who is genuinely present is like water in a desert. You don't need to say the perfect thing. You don't need to have all the answers. You just need to show up fully and hold space. That alone can be revolutionary. Because presence communicates, I am here. I am with you. You are safe. That message, delivered consistently and quietly, is more powerful than any speech. Developing this kind of presence is a lifelong journey. It involves unlearning the reflex to rush, the impulse to prove, the habit of distraction. It requires practices that root you in your body and in the moment. Breathing, meditation, reflection, stillness. It asks you to befriend your own discomfort so that you don't project it onto others. And above all, it demands honesty, with yourself first, then with the world. Because presence is not about perfection. It's about integrity. It's about showing up as you are without masks and trusting that your groundedness is enough. Real-life examples of gentle resilience. We tend to associate resilience with toughness, with pushing through, with bouncing back. But there is another kind of resilience, gentle, quiet, steady, that holds just as much power, if not more. It's the resilience of the mother who wakes up each morning to care for her children, even when her heart is breaking. It's the resilience of the friend who keeps checking in, even when their own life is full of chaos. It's the resilience of the teacher who keeps believing in the potential of every student, even after years of being overlooked. This is not the resilience of grand gestures. It's the resilience of continued presence, and it is one of the purest forms of quiet strength. Consider the nurse who speaks calmly to a frightened patient while managing a dozen other tasks, or the elder who listens without judgment, offering wisdom without ego, or the artist who creates every day without applause, simply because the act itself is sacred, These are the quiet warriors of our world. They do not seek recognition. They do not need validation. Their resilience is woven into the fabric of who they are. It's not loud, but it is enduring. And it teaches us something profound, that strength is not about how much you can carry loudly, but how much you can hold gently. Gentle resilience doesn't mean being unaffected by pain or untouched by struggle. It means choosing not to let pain harden you. It means staying open, even when the world tells you to close. It means continuing to show up with compassion, even when you've been wounded. This kind of strength doesn't make headlines. It doesn't always inspire hashtags, but it changes lives because it reminds us that strength and softness are not opposites. They can coexist, and when they do, they create a kind of power that is both fierce and kind, unshakable and tender. We need more stories of this kind of strength. Stories that celebrate the quiet heroes, the caregivers, the peacemakers, the steady presences in the background. We need to teach our children that courage can look like kindness, that power can come with gentleness, that resilience doesn't always shout. Because when we begin to see these qualities not as exceptions, but as essentials, we start to shift the culture. We begin to build a world where quiet strength is not just respected, but revered. Chapter 3. The Gift of Stillness. Slowing down in a speed-obsessed world. There is an unspoken race that most of us are running, a race without a clear finish line, yet one that seems to grow more frantic with each passing day. The modern world, in all its brilliance and convenience, has cultivated a culture of perpetual motion. From the moment we wake, the world pulls us into a current of urgency. Notifications ping like tiny alarms, calendars overflow with commitments, and silence is often interrupted by the hum of 1,000 tasks waiting in line. We move fast, we think fast, we consume fast, but rarely do we ask, at what cost? In a speed-obsessed world, stillness becomes radical. It becomes not just a practice, but an act of reclaiming ourselves from a culture that equates worth with output and busyness with success. And it is here, in choosing to slow down, that the journey inward truly begins. The pressure to stay in motion is not just external. It becomes internalized over time. Many of us have come to believe that if we're not constantly moving, we're falling behind. That rest is indulgent. That pausing is laziness. But if we look closely, we can see how this mindset has exhausted not just our bodies, but our spirits. We've learned to ignore the quiet wisdom of our inner world, drowning it out with the endless hum of doing. In slowing down, we are not giving up on ambition or purpose. Rather, we are learning to move with intention, to act from a place of clarity rather than compulsion. When we pause the noise, we allow what is essential to rise. We give ourselves permission to stop performing life and start living it. Stillness is not the absence of activity. It is the presence of awareness. It is the conscious decision to be fully where we are, with all our senses engaged. It is walking slower on purpose. It is savoring the taste of food instead of rushing through a meal. It is hearing the rain without reaching for distraction. In these moments, we remember that life is not something to speed through. It's something to be felt, noticed, honored. And when we embrace stillness, even in small ways, we invite ourselves back into the sacred rhythm of now. This is not a retreat from life, but a return to it, learning to be with yourself. There is a subtle fear that underlies much of our restlessness, the fear of being alone with ourselves. When the noise quiets and the screens go dark, many of us are left in unfamiliar territory, our own inner landscape. We've spent so much time moving outward, engaging with the world, that we've forgotten how to sit still in our own company. But learning to be with yourself is not only essential, it is liberating. It is in these quiet spaces that we come to know who we are beyond the roles we play, beyond the noise that tells us what we should be. It is in solitude that we meet the raw, unfiltered parts of ourselves, not to judge, but to understand. Being with yourself does not mean being lonely. Loneliness is the ache of disconnection, but solitude is the gift of presence. It is the chance to hear your own voice without the distortion of others' opinions, to reconnect with your values, your longings, your limits. It is where intuition becomes clearer and where the noise of the world loses its grip. This can be uncomfortable at first, especially if you've spent years avoiding your own silence, but discomfort is not something to fear. It is a sign of growth. In sitting with yourself, even when it's hard, you are telling yourself, you matter. Your inner life is worth listening to. This practice of self-accompaniment is not about perfection. It's about presence. Some days you'll sit and feel clarity. Other days you'll sit and feel chaos. Both are valid. Both are part of the process. The more time you spend with yourself, the more you'll begin to see your own patterns, your triggers, your tender places. And instead of reacting blindly to life, you'll begin to respond from a place of knowing. You'll become less afraid of your thoughts because you face them, less reactive to others because you've made peace within. This is the quiet alchemy of solitude. It turns self-avoidance into self-respect. Learning to be with yourself doesn't require a cabin in the woods or long retreats. It starts in simple moments: drinking your morning coffee without checking your phone, taking a walk without earbuds, sitting for a few minutes before sleep just to check in. These micro moments, repeated with intention, begin to rewire your relationship with yourself. They remind you that you are not a stranger, you are home. And in that home, stillness is not empty. It is full of life. Stillness as restoration. The world will not stop spinning, but you can. This is the paradox and the power of stillness. When you stop, even briefly, you allow yourself to be restored. Rest is not the same as sleep. It is deeper than that. It is a full body exhale, a nervous system reset, a gentle reminder to your body and mind that you are not a machine. Stillness offers a place to land, to breathe, to be. In this way, it is not an escape from life. It is the soil from which all vitality grows. Without stillness, even the most passionate pursuits become exhausting. With it, life regains its color, its music, its depth. In the culture of hustle, we are taught to ignore our limits, to see tiredness as a failure. But exhaustion is not a sign that you're weak. It's a signal that you need care. Stillness answers that call. It offers space for repair, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. It gives your heart time to catch up to your life. It invites you to notice the subtle things, the way your breath moves, the tension in your jaw, the longing in your chest. These observations are not trivial. They are messages. And when we are still enough to hear them, we begin to heal. There is an intelligence in stillness that can't be accessed when we are constantly rushing. Solutions often appear when we stop looking. Emotions unravel when we stop pushing them down. Clarity returns when we stop forcing answers. In stillness, we shift from doing to being. We reconnect with the rhythms of nature, the cycles of our bodies, the truth of our inner world. This is where real restoration begins, not in checking out, but in tuning in, not in running away, but in coming home. Stillness does not always feel easy, especially if you've been conditioned to measure your worth by your productivity. But that's exactly why it's essential. It reminds you that you are not what you produce. You are a human being, not a human doing. Your value is not contingent on your activity. Stillness, then, becomes an act of radical self-acceptance, a way of saying, I am enough even when I am not achieving. I am worthy even when I am simply resting. And that message, received deeply, is more restorative than anything else. Creating daily moments of quiet. We often think of stillness as something we must retreat to, something reserved for special moments or weekend getaways. But the real magic of stillness happens in the small, ordinary moments of daily life. It's not about escaping reality. It's about integrating calm into your reality. Creating daily moments of quiet is a practice in mindfulness, in sacred attention. It's about pausing long enough to let the world catch up with your breath. These moments don't have to be long or elaborate. They just have to be consistent. A few minutes of quiet can shift the trajectory of your entire day. Begin by choosing simple rituals that invite quiet into your routine. It could be waking up 15 minutes earlier to sit in stillness before the world demands your attention, or stepping outside for a short walk without your phone, letting nature recalibrate your senses. It might be a pause before meals, a breath between meetings, a quiet corner at night to reflect. These small pauses become anchors. They remind you that amidst the busyness, there is always a place to return, a place within, and the more often you return to it, the more accessible it becomes. These moments of quiet are not about performance or productivity. They're about presence. You don't have to meditate perfectly, or journal every day, or follow a script. You just have to show up, to listen, to be. Over time, you'll notice a shift. Your reactivity lessens, your clarity sharpens, your body softens. You begin to move through the world, not with urgency, but with presence. And in doing so, you bring stillness with you. It becomes less about finding peace and more about being peace. In creating these moments, you are also creating a life that values depth over speed, quality over quantity, essence over appearance. A life that is not dictated by noise, but guided by intention. And this is where quiet strength finds its roots, not in grand declarations, but in small daily choices. Choices to pause, to breathe, to return. These are the practices that slowly, quietly, change everything, not all at once, but steadily, deeply, meaningfully. And as you cultivate this inner quiet, you begin to live not just from your mind, but from your soul. Chapter 4. The Inner Sanctuary Building Calm Inner World. There exists within each of us a sanctuary, a place untouched by the chaos of the outside world, a still space where clarity whispers and peace resides. Yet for many, this inner refuge feels distant or buried beneath years of distraction, noise, and emotional clutter. In a world where external stimulation demands our constant attention, we often neglect the sacred responsibility of tending to our inner terrain. But just as a gardener cultivates soil to yield nourishment and beauty, we too can build and nurture a calm inner world. This process is neither instant nor linear. It is a daily invitation to return to yourself, to make your interior life a place worth inhabiting. Your inner world is your most constant home, and it deserves your attention, your care, your intentional presence. To begin shaping this sanctuary, we must first notice what currently fills the space. Is it crowded with worry, overthinking, regret? Is it buzzing with judgments of ourselves, of others? Or perhaps it's simply been neglected, silent, but stifled. Creating calm within doesn't mean silencing every thought or erasing every emotion. It means offering those experiences room to breathe without letting them take over. It means stepping back far enough to witness what arises without identifying with it fully. Your thoughts are visitors, not permanent residents. Your emotions are messages, not dictators. In this awareness, calm begins to take root. Cultivating a calm inner world is not about reaching some mystical state of constant serenity. It is about creating conditions in which peace can be accessed even in the midst of disruption. Think of it as emotional architecture. You're designing inner structures strong enough to hold life's storms, soft enough to let light in. The walls of this sanctuary are built with practices of mindfulness, compassion, and discernment. The floor is laid with self-respect and the ceiling with trust. There is no need to rush this construction. Each moment of presence is another brick in the foundation. Over time, this space becomes not only real, but reliable. And when your inner world is one of calm, the outer world affects you differently. You stop reacting to every disturbance, not because you've shut down, but because you've grounded yourself in something deeper. You become less driven by fear, less seduced by noise. From this inner sanctuary, you see more clearly, love more freely, live more fully. You no longer chase peace outside yourself. You carry it with you. The role of solitude in self-discovery. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a profound teacher. In the silence of being alone, we hear truths that have long been muffled by the din of daily life. It is in solitude that the performative layers begin to peel away, and we meet ourselves without an audience, without a script. This can be unsettling, especially if we've spent much of life defining ourselves by others' expectations. But solitude is essential for self-discovery. It creates the space necessary to observe what we actually think, feel, desire, beneath the noise, beneath the roles. Too often, we mistake loneliness for solitude, but they are not the same. Loneliness is a hunger for connection. Solitude is the fullness of connection with self. In solitude, we are not abandoned. We are returned. Returned to the thoughts we've deferred, the emotions we've buried, the questions we've avoided. These encounters may be uncomfortable at first, but they are also clarifying. When we allow ourselves the quiet to feel, to reflect, to simply exist without performance, we begin to discern what is truly ours and what we've merely inherited or absorbed. Solitude separates signal from noise. This is where self-trust begins to form, not in seeking advice or approval, but in listening inward. In solitude, your inner voice becomes clearer, more familiar, more trustworthy. You begin to recognize what lights you up and what drains you. What beliefs are rooted in truth and which ones in fear. This inner knowing is not always convenient, but it is always freeing. It gives you the courage to make choices that align with your soul, even when they don't make sense to the world. Building a relationship with solitude requires intention. It may mean setting boundaries around your time, stepping away from digital noise, or carving out quiet pockets in your day where you're simply with yourself. These moments don't have to be long, but they must be honest. No agenda, no performance, just presence. And in these moments, you'll discover not just who you are, but who you are becoming. Solitude doesn't isolate you from the world. It prepares you to meet it with more integrity. Detaching from external chaos. There's a kind of freedom that comes not from changing the world around you, but from shifting your relationship to it. Detachment is not indifference. It is discernment. It is the ability to observe the chaos without becoming consumed by it. When we live reactively, we become entangled in every drama, every opinion, every headline. Our peace is held hostage by forces outside our control. But when we practice detachment, we reclaim our energy. We stop letting the outer world dictate our inner state. We step out of the whirlpool and stand on solid ground. Detachment begins with noticing what pulls you off center. It might be the opinions of others, the never-ending news cycle, the pressure to keep up. These aren't inherently bad, but when they determine your mood, your choices, your sense of self, they become forms of subtle chaos. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care wisely. You engage without absorbing. You listen without losing yourself. You respond without reacting. This kind of clarity comes from within. It is cultivated, not gifted. The more grounded you are in your inner sanctuary, the easier it becomes to navigate outer storms. You no longer need the world to be calm for you to be calm. You can witness the noise without amplifying it, Hold space for emotion without drowning in it. Stay open to life without being swept away by it. This is not numbness, it's power. The quiet power of presence over panic. Detachment also means letting go of the illusion of control. So much of our stress comes from trying to manage the unmanageable, others' actions, future outcomes, the unpredictable nature of life. But peace doesn't come from control. It comes from surrender. Not a passive surrender, but an active one, choosing to invest your energy where it matters and release what you cannot change. In this release, the mind softens, the body loosens, and the spirit expands. You realize that you are not here to fix the world, but to meet it with clarity, compassion, and calm. Practices that strengthen inner peace. Inner peace is not something you find once and keep forever. It is something you nurture continually. It requires daily tending, like a flame that needs fuel and protection. Thankfully, there are practices, simple, sacred, powerful, that help cultivate this peace. They do not require elaborate rituals or hours of time. What they require is intention, presence, and a willingness to turn inward. These practices become the architecture of your inner sanctuary, strengthening your foundation so that when the winds blow, and they will, you remain steady. One such practice is breath awareness. The breath is a constant companion, always available, always anchoring. When the mind races, returning to the breath brings you back to the present. Slow, conscious breathing calms the nervous system, centers the mind, and reconnects you with the now. It's not just a tool for meditation, it's a lifeline throughout your day. A few slow breaths before a meeting, a quiet inhale-exhale during a difficult conversation. This is how peace becomes portable. Another powerful practice is reflection. Whether through journaling, meditative thought, or still sitting, reflection creates space to process your experiences. It turns chaos into clarity. It allows you to integrate rather than suppress. Even 5 minutes of honest reflection at the end of the day can shift your inner climate. Ask yourself, what stirred me today? What did I learn about myself? What do I need to release? In this awareness, peace takes root. Gratitude is also a profound anchor for inner peace. It doesn't require that everything be perfect. It invites you to find meaning even in imperfection. Daily gratitude, written or spoken, trains the mind to see beauty amidst the mess, to notice joy in the ordinary. It reframes struggle without denying it. Over time, gratitude becomes not just a practice, but a perspective, a lens through which you meet the world. Lastly, stillness itself is a practice, not passive, but deeply active. Sitting quietly, even for a few moments, without reaching for stimulation, teaches the mind to settle, the heart to open. These moments of stillness reconnect you with the vastness inside you, reminding you that peace is not outside of you. It is you. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Not perfect, but possible. Not distant, but near. Always near. Chapter 5. The Power of Mindfulness. What mindfulness really means. Mindfulness, though widely discussed and increasingly referenced in modern conversation, is often misunderstood. Many associate it with the image of someone sitting cross-legged in silence, eyes closed, removed from reality. While meditation may be one expression of mindfulness, the essence of the practice is far broader and far more accessible. At its core, mindfulness means paying attention, deeply and without judgment, to what is happening in the present moment. It is the act of becoming fully awake to your experience as it unfolds, not caught in the past or anxious about the future, but rooted in the now. This presence is not passive, it is vividly alive. It is the practice of engaging with life not as we wish it were, but as it is, messy, beautiful, fleeting, and real. When we understand mindfulness in this way, we begin to see that it is not reserved for spiritual masters or wellness retreats. It is available to all of us in every moment, regardless of our circumstances. Mindfulness doesn't require you to empty your mind or attain some mystical state of enlightenment. Rather, it invites you to observe your thoughts as they are, rising, falling, passing through, without clinging to them or pushing them away. This simple shift in relationship to thought can be revolutionary. We often live at the mercy of our minds, pulled by every worry, distracted by every impulse, reacting without pause. Mindfulness offers a space between stimulus and response, a sacred pause where choice becomes possible. In that pause, we reclaim our agency. We no longer have to follow every fearful thought or act on every irritation. We can breathe. We can see. We can respond with clarity rather than react from habit. This is where quiet strength begins to emerge, not from controlling the world, but from being fully present in it. In a world addicted to speed and noise, mindfulness is an act of quiet rebellion. It asks us to slow down, to notice, to feel. It challenges the assumption that multitasking is noble and busyness is a badge of honor. Instead, it calls us back to a single moment, to the richness of simplicity, to the extraordinary in the ordinary. Washing the dishes becomes a sensory experience, the warmth of the water, the sound of the bubbles, the rhythm of the movement. A walk becomes a meditation, the feel of the earth under your feet, the breeze on your skin, the sky overhead. In this attentive presence, life becomes more textured, more meaningful. The mundane is no longer something to rush through. It becomes a portal to presence. Importantly, mindfulness also cultivates compassion. As we become more aware of our own thoughts and emotions, we develop a kinder, gentler way of relating to ourselves. We see our inner critic for what it is, a voice formed by fear, not truth. We recognize the suffering beneath our anger, the vulnerability beneath our defensiveness. This self-awareness does not weaken us. It softens us in the best way. It allows us to meet ourselves with grace, which in turn allows us to meet others with the same. We become less reactive, more curious, more open. This is the quiet strength of mindfulness, not flashy or loud, but deeply transformative, simple presence in everyday life. It's easy to talk about mindfulness as a concept, but the real power lies in its application. How do we bring this quality of presence into our actual lives, into the busyness, the stress, the relentless momentum of daily routines? The answer is both deceptively simple and profoundly challenging. We practice. Over and over, we return to the moment we're in. We breathe. We notice. We begin again. And in doing so, we infuse our ordinary days with extraordinary awareness. Start with the moments that are already happening. When you wake up, before you reach for your phone, pause. Feel your body lying in the bed. Listen to the sounds around you. Notice your breath. These few seconds set a tone of intention for the day. As you move through your morning, bring attention to small actions. Brushing your teeth, pouring your coffee, tying your shoes. Let them become anchors to the present. These aren't chores to rush through. They are doorways into now. As you continue through the day, whether commuting, working, parenting, or simply going about your tasks, notice how often your mind drifts. When it does, gently bring it back. Not with force or frustration, but with kindness. The return is the practice. Mindfulness is especially powerful in moments of emotional intensity. When frustration arises in traffic, when anxiety surfaces before a meeting, when sadness swells unexpectedly, these are not interruptions to your peace. They are invitations to deepen it. Instead of pushing away the feeling or becoming consumed by it, pause. Notice what's happening in your body. Feel the tightness in your chest, the heat in your face, the flutter in your stomach. Breathe into those sensations. Name the emotion without judging it. This is stress. This is fear. This is anger. In naming it, you create space. In breathing into it, you begin to transform it. This is how presence becomes power. Even conversations become richer when we are mindful. Instead of planning our response while the other person is speaking, we can actually listen. We can hear not just their words, but the emotion behind them, the need underneath. We become more attuned, more empathetic. Our presence becomes a gift, not only to ourselves, but to those around us. Mindfulness, then, is not a solitary pursuit. It is a relational one. It deepens our connections by making us more available, more real, more human. In these everyday acts of attention, life begins to feel different. We are no longer skimming the surface, moving on autopilot. We are participating fully and intentionally. And in that participation, we find a quiet joy, not the ecstatic kind that depends on highs and achievements, but the steady kind that comes from simply being alive, awake, and here. Anchoring yourself with the breath among all the tools for cultivating mindfulness, none is more immediate or reliable than the breath. It is always with us, always available, always offering an invitation back to the present. The breath doesn't judge. It doesn't rush. It doesn't require anything from you. It simply is. And when we bring our attention to it, when we ride the wave of each inhale and exhale, we return home to ourselves. There is a reason why nearly every contemplative tradition, from ancient to modern, uses the breath as a focal point. It bridges the body and mind. It calms the nervous system. It provides a rhythm, a pattern, a place to rest our attention when the mind wants to wander. The breath is life itself, and in attending to it, we align with something elemental, something sacred. When you feel overwhelmed, one deep breath won't fix everything, but it can create a pause, a shift, a crack in the wall of stress. It reminds you that you're here, alive, capable of beginning again. To use the breath as an anchor, you don't need to sit on a cushion or light a candle, though you can. All you need is intention. Close your eyes if it feels safe. Feel the air moving in through your nose, expanding your chest, filling your lungs. Then feel it leaving, slow, steady, effortless. Do this for a minute, or 2, or 5. Notice the thoughts that come and go and gently return to the breath. The breath is not a destination. It's a companion. You don't need to arrive anywhere. You're already here. Breathing consciously throughout your day is like planting flags of presence. Before a difficult conversation, take a breath. Before opening an email, take a breath. Before reacting to bad news, take a breath. These moments don't erase difficulty, but they infuse it with awareness. And awareness changes everything. It gives you the ability to choose your response, to stay connected, to remain rooted. Over time, the breath becomes a trusted ally. It helps you navigate storms without being swept away. It reminds you that peace is not the absence of challenge, but the presence of groundedness amidst it. Meditation as a daily companion. If mindfulness is the practice of presence, then meditation is its training ground. It is where we intentionally create space to sit with ourselves, to observe without distraction, to cultivate the qualities of awareness, compassion, and calm. Contrary to popular belief, meditation is not about stopping thoughts or achieving perfect stillness. It is about relationship. Your relationship with your own mind, your emotions, your breath. It is about sitting in the middle of your inner world and saying, I am here. I am listening. The beauty of meditation is that it meets you where you are. You can meditate for 5 minutes or 50. You can sit on a cushion or in a chair. You can focus on the breath, a mantra, a visualization, or simply observe what arises. There is no one right way. There is only the way that brings you home to yourself. The key is consistency. Like any skill, meditation deepens with practice. Some days your mind will be quiet. Other days it will be wild. Both are okay. The point is not to control the experience, but to show up for it with honesty and gentleness. In time, meditation becomes more than a practice. It becomes a presence in your life. You begin to notice moments when your breath deepens naturally, when your reactions soften, when your awareness sharpens. You find yourself pausing before speaking, breathing before deciding, listening before judging. These are not small changes. They are foundational. They shift the way you move through the world, from frantic to focused, from reactive to responsive, from scattered to centered. Meditation also teaches us to be with discomfort. Rather than distracting or numbing, we learn to sit with what is, to feel sadness without drowning in it, to notice fear without being ruled by it, to experience joy without clinging to it. This capacity for presence transforms not only our relationship with ourselves, but with others. We become more compassionate, more resilient, more present. And in this way, meditation becomes a quiet revolution, not in the world around us, but in the world within us. Chapter 6. Boundaries that protect peace. The importance of setting boundaries. In the pursuit of peace, few things are as essential as boundaries. Boundaries are not walls that isolate us from others, but rather the necessary structures that allow us to maintain our integrity, energy, and sense of self amidst the demands and distractions of the world. They are the invisible lines that define where we end and others begin, where we can say yes without resentment and no without guilt. Boundaries protect our time, our space, and our emotional well-being, providing a safe framework in which we can truly be ourselves. Yet, despite their importance, boundaries are often neglected or misunderstood, leading to stress, burnout, and feelings of being overwhelmed. In a culture that values productivity, self-sacrifice, and constant connectivity, learning to establish and enforce boundaries can be a radical act of self-care. It is a way of honoring ourselves and our needs, of choosing peace over the tyranny of external expectations. Setting boundaries is not about controlling others. It is about reclaiming the power to control how we engage with the world. At their core, boundaries are an expression of self-respect. When we fail to set clear boundaries, we send the message, both to ourselves and others, that our time and energy are limitless, that we are available to anyone and everyone at any moment. This mindset may seem altruistic, even virtuous at first, but it quickly leads to exhaustion, frustration, and resentment. Without boundaries, we allow external forces, be they people, obligations, or circumstances, to dictate our priorities and our pace. We lose the ability to choose how we show up in the world, instead, becoming reactive, pulled in 100 different directions. Peace in this scenario becomes a distant dream, something we hope for but cannot reach because our personal limits are continuously violated. Setting boundaries, then, is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-preservation. It is a necessary practice that allows us to protect our peace, our energy, and ultimately, our happiness. One of the most common challenges people face when setting boundaries is the fear of disappointing others. We worry that saying no will lead to conflict, rejection, or feelings of guilt. This fear often arises from a deep-seated belief that our worth is tied to our ability to please others or to meet their needs, even at the expense of our own. However, this belief is both misguided and unsustainable. The truth is that we cannot pour from an empty cup. If we are constantly giving, constantly accommodating, constantly bending to others' demands, we will eventually burn out. Setting boundaries is not about closing ourselves off to others. It is about ensuring that we have the energy and space to engage with them in a healthy, authentic way. It is about teaching others how to treat us and, more importantly, teaching ourselves how to honor our own needs. Recognizing your limits. The first step in setting boundaries is recognizing and honoring our limits. Each person has a unique threshold of what they can give, what they can handle, and what they can tolerate before feeling overwhelmed. These limits are not rigid or fixed. They shift depending on our physical, emotional, and mental state, as well as the demands of the moment. But without awareness of where our limits lie, we are at the mercy of outside influences. We say yes to commitments we don't have the energy for, accept responsibilities we are not ready to take on, and neglect our own needs in favor of others. Over time, this disregard for our limits leads to stress, burnout, and a deep sense of dissatisfaction. Recognizing our limits is the first step toward reclaiming our peace. It requires self-awareness, the ability to tune into our bodies, our emotions, and our minds, to notice when we feel stretched too thin or when we are being asked to give more than we can. The key to recognizing our limits is learning to listen to our inner signals. These signals may manifest in physical sensations, such as tightness in the chest, headaches, or fatigue. They may appear as emotional cues, such as irritability, overwhelm, or a sense of dread. These are not signs of weakness, but rather important indicators that we are nearing or have exceeded our capacity. Paying attention to these cues is not a sign of fragility. It is an act of strength. It is a way of honoring our humanity, acknowledging that we are not machines, but complex beings with finite resources. In a world that demands constant output and productivity, this may feel countercultural. However, it is essential for sustaining peace in our lives. When we ignore these limits, we risk losing our sense of self, becoming disconnected from what truly matters to us. But when we acknowledge our limits, we empower ourselves to make choices that align with our values and our well-being. Setting boundaries is not about perfection. It is not about rigidly controlling every aspect of our lives. It is about cultivating awareness and discernment, and learning to make choices that honor our needs without guilt or shame. This may mean saying no to requests that drain our energy or overextend our time. It may mean stepping away from relationships that feel toxic or draining, or carving out time for rest when our bodies signal that we need it. It is about learning to prioritize ourselves, not out of selfishness, but out of necessity. Without boundaries, our lives become fragmented and scattered, a patchwork of obligations and distractions that leave no room for stillness, reflection, or peace. When we recognize our limits, we create space for the things that truly nourish us: our passions, our relationships, our health, our personal growth. Boundaries are not obstacles to happiness. They are the gatekeepers that allow us to access it. Communicating boundaries with clarity and compassion. Once we recognize our limits, the next challenge is communicating our boundaries with clarity and compassion. This can be particularly difficult for those who are conditioned to prioritize others' needs over their own. The fear of disappointing or upsetting someone can make it difficult to express our boundaries in a direct, honest way. However, clear communication is essential for establishing healthy boundaries. When we fail to communicate our limits, others cannot possibly know what we need or what we are capable of. They may unintentionally overstep, and we may silently suffer, resentful and unspoken. This creates a cycle of frustration and misunderstanding that undermines our peace. By contrast, when we communicate our boundaries clearly, we set expectations for ourselves and others, and we give ourselves permission to say no without guilt or fear. Clear communication is not about being harsh or rigid. It is about being kind and direct. It is about expressing our needs with honesty, but also with empathy. For example, instead of saying, "I can't help you with that," we might say, "I'm currently unable to take on any new commitments, but I appreciate you thinking of me." This way, we are not rejecting the person, but rather setting a limit on what we can realistically offer. Compassionate communication respects both our needs and the needs of others, allowing us to create boundaries that are both firm and loving. It also fosters understanding, as it helps others to recognize that our boundaries are not personal rejections, but necessary acts of self-care. Establishing and communicating boundaries also requires patience and practice. It may feel awkward or uncomfortable at first, especially if we are not used to asserting our needs. It may prompt resistance or pushback from others, particularly if they are not accustomed to us setting limits. But this is where the power of consistency comes in. The more we practice setting and communicating our boundaries, the easier it becomes. Over time, people will come to understand and respect our limits, just as we learn to respect theirs. It may take time for others to adjust, but the process is worth it. Healthy boundaries create healthier relationships, built on mutual respect and understanding. In the end, boundaries not only protect our peace, they enhance our connections with others by ensuring that we engage from a place of authenticity and balance. Boundaries and the inner peace they cultivate. The practice of setting and maintaining boundaries is deeply intertwined with the cultivation of inner peace. When we fail to set boundaries, we surrender control of our time, our energy, and our emotions to external forces. We allow others' needs and demands to dictate our lives, leaving little room for our own desires, rest, or growth. This results in inner conflict between what we want to do and what we feel obligated to do, between our desire for peace and the relentless noise of external expectations. But when we establish boundaries, we create a container for peace. We prioritize our well-being, our needs, and our desires, allowing ourselves the space to recharge, reflect, and grow. This cultivation of peace begins on the inside and radiates outward, creating a life that is more centered, balanced, and fulfilling. Boundaries are not only external, they are also internal. In addition to setting limits with others, we must also set limits with ourselves, our thoughts, our habits, our internal dialogue. For example, we may need to set boundaries around negative self-talk or perfectionistic tendencies. We may need to establish limits on how much time we spend dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. Internal boundaries allow us to protect our mental and emotional peace by recognizing when our minds are veering into unproductive or harmful territory. This internal discipline strengthens our ability to remain centered, even in the face of external stress or chaos. In this way, boundaries are not just about protecting our external environment. They are about creating a peaceful inner world where we can thrive. Chapter 7. Quiet Communication. Listening as a Superpower. In a world that thrives on rapid exchanges, where speaking is often seen as the most powerful tool of communication, the art of listening is both undervalued and underappreciated. Yet, in many ways, listening is one of the most powerful acts of communication we can engage in. It is a tool that, when honed and used intentionally, can foster deep connection, create understanding, and ultimately lead to the peaceful resolution of conflict. The act of listening is often overshadowed by the need to speak, to respond, to assert our own thoughts and ideas. In a culture that celebrates quick responses, sound bites, and witty retorts, truly listening, without judgment, interruption, or distraction, can seem like a rare and almost mystical practice. Yet, when we make the conscious decision to listen deeply, without agenda, without rushing to offer our own opinion, we open up a space for others to be heard, and in doing so, we create the conditions for genuine connection and empathy. Listening as a superpower is not just about hearing words. It is about understanding the emotions, intentions, and underlying needs behind those words. It requires us to quiet our own internal chatter and to be fully present with the person speaking. When we listen in this way, we are able to understand not only what is being said, but also what is being left unsaid. This kind of listening involves attuning ourselves to body language, tone of voice, and even the silences between words. It is a skill that, once developed, allows us to read between the lines and to sense the deeper emotions that often lie beneath the surface of conversation. To listen in this way is to acknowledge that everyone has a unique perspective and that their experiences, feelings, and thoughts deserve to be heard and understood. Listening with intention is a powerful way to honor the humanity of others, to validate their experiences, and to create a space in which trust and connection can flourish. Moreover, listening is not passive. It is an active, intentional practice. Active listening requires us to engage with the speaker, not just by hearing their words, but by reflecting, empathizing, and responding in a way that shows we have truly understood. This kind of listening requires patience, attentiveness, and presence. It requires us to put aside our own thoughts, distractions, and judgments in order to fully engage with the speaker's experience. It means resisting the urge to interrupt or to offer our own advice or opinions before the other person has had a chance to finish expressing themselves. Active listening is not just about being silent while someone else speaks. It is about being deeply engaged in what is being said, allowing ourselves to be shaped by the other person's words and experiences. Through this kind of listening, we not only gain a deeper understanding of the other person, but we also foster a deeper understanding of ourselves, as our responses and insights are shaped by the connection we build in the process. Speaking with intention. While listening is the foundation of quiet communication, speaking with intention is the counterpart that gives voice to our thoughts and feelings. In a noisy world, where everyone seems eager to share their opinions and be heard, speaking with intention is a practice that requires us to be deliberate and mindful about the words we choose, the tone we use, and the energy we bring to our conversations. It is an act of self-expression that is grounded in clarity, compassion, and authenticity. When we speak with intention, we take responsibility for the impact our words have on others. We are mindful not only of what we say, but also of how we say it. The words we speak can build bridges or create barriers, can heal wounds or deepen rifts, and can either contribute to the peace we seek or sow discord and misunderstanding. The power of our words lies not just in their meaning, but in their delivery and the energy we put behind them. Speaking with intention begins with self-awareness. It requires us to be clear about our own thoughts, feelings, and needs before we attempt to communicate them to others. This clarity allows us to speak from a place of authenticity without being swayed by external pressures or emotional reactivity. When we are clear about what we want to say, we are less likely to be influenced by the noise of our own internal dialogue or the expectations of others. This clarity also helps us to speak with compassion, as we can express our thoughts in a way that is considerate of the other person's feelings and perspective. It is about choosing our words carefully so that they align with our values and intentions. Speaking with intention does not mean being overly cautious or avoiding difficult conversations. Rather, it means approaching communication with mindfulness, knowing that our words have the power to influence not only the other person, but also the direction of the conversation and the relationship. In practical terms, speaking with intention involves taking a pause before responding, especially in emotionally charged situations. It means resisting the urge to react impulsively or defensively, and instead, giving ourselves the space to reflect on our response. It may involve asking clarifying questions to ensure that we fully understand the other person's perspective before offering our own thoughts. It also involves being honest but kind in our communication so that our words are not intended to hurt or criticize, but to share and to connect. Speaking with intention allows us to express ourselves clearly and respectfully, while also honoring the other person's experience. It transforms communication from a mere exchange of information into an opportunity for connection, growth, and mutual understanding. Calm assertiveness in conflict. Conflict is an inevitable part of human relationships, but how we approach and navigate conflict can make all the difference in maintaining peace. In many situations, people either avoid conflict altogether or react aggressively in the face of it. Both approaches tend to escalate tensions rather than resolve them. But there is a third way, a way that allows us to stand firm in our beliefs and boundaries, while also maintaining respect and compassion for the other person. This is the practice of calm assertiveness. Calm assertiveness is the ability to express our thoughts, feelings, and needs in a clear and respectful manner without being passive or aggressive. It involves speaking our truth with confidence, but without hostility, judgment, or defensiveness. When we practice calm assertiveness, we create the conditions for healthy conflict resolution, where both parties feel heard and understood, and where mutual respect is maintained, even in the midst of disagreement. At its core, calm assertiveness is about finding the balance between passivity and aggression. It is about being able to stand up for ourselves, to express our needs, and to say no when necessary, without resorting to manipulation, sarcasm, or hostility. This requires emotional intelligence, the ability to manage our own emotions and reactions, even in difficult or tense situations. It also requires a high level of self-awareness, as we must be able to recognize when our own boundaries are being crossed, or when we are being triggered by someone else's behavior. Calm assertiveness allows us to remain grounded and centered, even when faced with opposition or disagreement. It is the ability to hold space for both our own feelings and the other person's feelings, to express ourselves with clarity and honesty, and to remain open to hearing the other person's perspective. One of the key components of calm assertiveness is the ability to remain calm under pressure. This requires us to manage our own emotions in the heat of the moment, rather than allowing them to dictate our responses. When we are calm, we are better able to think clearly, to choose our words carefully, and to stay focused on the issue at hand. Remaining calm also helps to de-escalate conflict, as it prevents us from getting caught up in reactive emotions or power struggles. It signals to the other person that we are not looking for a fight, but rather for a solution. Calm assertiveness is not about winning or being right. It is about finding common ground and creating a space for productive dialogue. It is a practice that allows us to navigate conflict with grace, confidence, and respect. In addition to remaining calm, calm assertiveness also involves being direct and clear in our communication. This means expressing ourselves honestly, without beating around the bush or sugarcoating our feelings. It means being willing to speak up for ourselves, even when it feels uncomfortable or vulnerable. When we are assertive, we communicate our needs and boundaries without apology, knowing that we have a right to do so. This kind of communication fosters mutual respect and understanding, as it allows both parties to see each other's perspectives and needs clearly. Calm assertiveness, when practiced consistently, builds stronger, healthier relationships, as it creates a foundation of trust, honesty, and respect. Letting silence speak. Sometimes, the most powerful form of communication is not what we say, but what we don't say. In a world that often equates silence with discomfort or awkwardness, learning to embrace the power of silence can be a transformative practice. Silence allows us to pause, to reflect, and to listen more deeply, both to ourselves and to others. It is in these moments of quiet that we often find the space for deeper understanding and connection. Silence can be a powerful tool in communication, especially when words fall short or when emotions are running high. By allowing moments of silence to exist in our conversations, we create the opportunity for both ourselves and others to process our thoughts, to reflect, and to connect on a deeper level. Silence is not the absence of communication. It is an integral part of the communication process, one that allows us to listen more attentively and to respond more thoughtfully. In conflict or difficult conversations, silence can be a tool for de-escalation. When tensions rise, a well-timed pause can allow both parties to collect their thoughts and prevent the conversation from spiraling into defensiveness or hostility. Silence also gives us the space to consider our own responses, to check in with our emotions, and to make sure we are communicating in a way that aligns with our values. Sometimes saying nothing is the most powerful thing we can do in a given moment. By allowing silence to speak, we open up the possibility for deeper understanding and more meaningful connection. In the quiet moments of listening, speaking with intention, and using silence as a tool, we cultivate peace in our relationships and within ourselves. Quiet communication is not about shrinking or silencing ourselves. It is about finding our voice and using it with care, clarity, and compassion. It is about being fully present in our conversations, attuned to the words, the feelings, and the silences that make up the whole of communication. When we practice quiet communication, we honor both our own truth and the truth of others, creating a foundation for connection, understanding, and peace. Chapter 8: Taming the Inner Noise. Recognizing negative thought patterns. It is almost as if there is a constant hum within our minds, a steady stream of thoughts, judgments, and beliefs that shapes how we perceive ourselves and the world around us. This inner noise is often so subtle, so ingrained in our daily lives, that we hardly notice it. Yet it is there, quietly influencing our actions, emotions, and decisions. We may not always be aware of it, but we are constantly in dialogue with ourselves, and much of that dialogue is negative. We may tell ourselves that we are not good enough, that we don't measure up, that we are failures, or that we'll never succeed. These negative thought patterns, shaped by our past experiences, fears, and insecurities, can create a barrier to peace and self-acceptance. They are the internal critics that whisper in our ears, urging us to doubt our worth and capabilities. They can be relentless, creating an environment of self-judgment that drowns out the quiet strength that resides within us. Recognizing these negative thought patterns is the first step toward taming the inner noise. Often, we are so accustomed to the narrative in our minds that we fail to question it. We accept it as truth, as a reflection of who we are, when in reality, these thoughts are just that, thoughts. They are not facts, nor do they define our true essence. To begin taming this inner noise, we must first become aware of the thoughts that dominate our mental landscape. We need to observe them without judgment, simply noticing when they arise and what they are telling us. This requires mindfulness, the ability to be present with our thoughts without becoming consumed by them. By recognizing when negative patterns emerge, we can begin to create a space between ourselves and our thoughts, allowing us to choose how we respond, rather than automatically reacting from a place of fear, doubt, or insecurity. This awareness is the key to dismantling the hold that negative thinking has on our lives. One of the most common negative thought patterns is the tendency to catastrophize, believing that the worst possible outcome is not only likely, but inevitable. This type of thinking amplifies anxiety and fear, creating a sense of impending doom that can paralyze us. Another pattern is all or nothing thinking, where we see situations or ourselves in extreme terms. Either we are perfect or we are failures. There is no middle ground. These kinds of thoughts trap us in a cycle of self-criticism and perfectionism, making it difficult to experience peace or satisfaction. By recognizing these patterns, we can begin to challenge them. We can ask ourselves whether the worst-case scenario is truly likely, whether our all or nothing thinking is based in reality, and whether there is a more balanced perspective to adopt. This process of questioning and reframing allows us to break free from the grip of negative thought patterns and create a more compassionate and realistic inner narrative. As we learn to recognize these thoughts, we start to reclaim our inner peace and quiet the mental noise that often overwhelms us. Quieting the inner critic. The inner critic is one of the loudest sources of inner noise. It is that voice inside us that constantly tells us we are not enough, that we are unworthy, or that we will never measure up to the expectations of others. This voice is often harsh and unforgiving, offering no room for error or imperfection. It thrives on comparison and judgment, constantly comparing us to others and making us feel as though we fall short. The inner critic can manifest in many ways. It can be the voice that says, "You'll never be good enough," or the voice that makes us feel guilty for taking a break, urging us to push ourselves harder. It can be the voice that tells us to avoid vulnerability or to hide our true selves for fear of being judged or rejected. It is often shaped by past experiences, societal pressures, and the fear of failure, and it can become a powerful force that diminishes our sense of self-worth and confidence. To tame the inner critic, we must first recognize its voice for what it is, a product of fear and insecurity rather than truth. The inner critic is not our authentic voice. It is a distorted version of our thoughts, born from negative conditioning and self-doubt. One of the most effective ways to quiet the inner critic is through self-compassion. When the inner critic speaks, instead of responding with more criticism, we can counter it with kindness. We can remind ourselves that it is okay to make mistakes, that we are deserving of love and acceptance, and that our value is not defined by our achievements or external validation. Self-compassion allows us to respond to the inner critic with gentleness, rather than resistance. When we practice self-compassion, we shift our focus from self-judgment to self-acceptance, and we create space for the quiet strength that exists within us. This practice involves speaking to ourselves the way we would speak to a friend, offering encouragement, understanding, and support, rather than harsh criticism or condemnation. Another powerful tool in quieting the inner critic is mindfulness. By becoming more aware of our thoughts, we can begin to observe the inner critic without becoming attached to its messages. We can see it for what it is, a fleeting thought, not a reflection of our true nature. Mindfulness allows us to create a sense of detachment from the inner critic, so that it no longer has the power to dictate how we feel about ourselves. Instead of reacting to its voice with fear or shame, we can acknowledge its presence and gently redirect our focus back to the present moment. This creates a space of calm and clarity, where the inner critic no longer has the power to derail us. Over time, with practice, the inner critic begins to lose its hold, and we learn to trust our own inner wisdom rather than the distorted voice of self-doubt, replacing noise with compassion. While negative thought patterns and the inner critic contribute to the noise in our minds, another source of inner noise is our tendency to judge and criticize ourselves and others. This mental chatter often takes the form of harsh judgments, comparisons, and expectations that create a sense of internal chaos. We may judge ourselves for not being good enough, or compare our lives to others, feeling inadequate or inferior. This constant mental noise can leave us feeling disconnected from ourselves and others, and it can prevent us from experiencing the peace and quiet we so deeply crave. Replacing this noise with compassion is a transformative practice that helps us to cultivate a sense of inner calm and acceptance. Compassion is the antidote to judgment. When we approach ourselves and others with compassion, we soften the inner noise of criticism and replace it with understanding and kindness. Compassion allows us to recognize our shared humanity and to offer ourselves the same care and support that we would offer to a loved one. When we replace judgment with compassion, we stop seeing ourselves and others through the lens of flaws and failures, and instead, we begin to see the inherent goodness and worth in everyone. This shift in perspective creates a profound sense of peace as we release the need to be perfect or to compare ourselves to others. Compassion allows us to accept ourselves as we are, without needing to measure up to external standards or expectations. It is through this practice of compassion that we quiet the noise of judgment and create the space for inner peace and tranquility. Replacing noise with compassion also involves practicing empathy. Empathy allows us to connect with others on a deeper level, understanding their feelings and experiences without judgment or criticism. When we practice empathy, we create a space for mutual understanding and support, where both parties feel heard and validated. This not only strengthens our relationships with others, but it also cultivates a sense of peace within ourselves, as we no longer feel the need to defend or protect ourselves from judgment. Compassion and empathy create an environment where inner noise can be silenced and where peace can take root. Taming the inner noise is an ongoing process that requires awareness, patience, and practice. By recognizing negative thought patterns, quieting the inner critic, and replacing noise with compassion, we create a space for peace and clarity to emerge. This process of taming the inner noise is not about eliminating all thoughts or achieving a state of perfection. Rather, it is about learning to observe our thoughts without becoming consumed by them and responding with kindness, understanding, and compassion. As we quiet the inner noise, we make room for the quiet strength that lies within us, and we create a life that is more aligned with our true selves. Chapter 9: Finding Your Natural Rhythm. Honoring your energy cycles. In the hustle and bustle of modern life, we are often taught to push through exhaustion, to ignore the subtle cues our bodies send us, and to keep up with an endless cycle of tasks and responsibilities. But the truth is, each of us has a natural rhythm, an internal clock, a unique flow of energy that ebbs and flows throughout the day, week, and even the seasons of our lives. When we fail to honor this rhythm, when we force ourselves to conform to societal expectations of constant productivity, we disconnect from the very essence of our being, leading to burnout, stress, and a profound sense of imbalance. In contrast, when we learn to honor our natural energy cycles, we allow ourselves the grace to flow with the rhythms of life, rather than against them. This is the key to finding peace amidst the noise, to cultivating a sense of calm, and to discovering the quiet strength that lies in balance and alignment. Our energy cycles are deeply connected to our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. It's not just about how much sleep we get or when we eat. It's about tuning in to the subtle shifts in our bodies and minds that tell us when we are at our peak and when we are at our lowest. For example, many of us have experienced the mid-afternoon slump when our energy dips and our focus wanes. In these moments, we may be tempted to push through, to keep working despite feeling fatigued. But this is when we need to listen to our bodies and give ourselves permission to rest or shift gears. Alternatively, there are times during the day when we feel more alert, more creative, and more energized. These are the moments to dive into tasks that require focus and concentration when our energy is aligned with our natural flow. By paying attention to these shifts in energy and honoring them, we can align our actions with our inner rhythms, leading to greater productivity, less stress, and more fulfillment. Honoring your energy cycles isn't just about finding balance in your day. It's about recognizing the broader rhythms that influence your life. Just as the seasons change, so too do the phases of our lives. There are periods of growth, of intense activity and focus, and there are periods of rest, reflection, and renewal. Understanding these cycles, when to push forward and when to step back, allows us to live in harmony with the natural flow of life. The key is not to force ourselves into a mold, but to honor where we are in any given moment. When we align our actions with our energy cycles, we tap into a deeper sense of flow and ease. It's about learning to listen to our bodies and our minds, to trust that our internal rhythms will guide us, and to create space for rest when needed. Living slower to live better. One of the most profound shifts we can make in the pursuit of quiet strength is the decision to slow down. In a culture that glorifies speed, productivity, and constant motion, slowing down can feel counterintuitive. We are conditioned to believe that more is better, that faster is more efficient, and that we should always be moving, always be doing. But the truth is, when we live too quickly, we miss the richness of life that is found in the present moment. We overlook the small joys, the quiet moments, and the opportunities for connection that exist when we slow down and become more intentional in how we live. In this chapter, we explore the idea that living slower is not only healthier for our minds and bodies, but it also allows us to live better, more fulfilling lives. Living slower does not mean doing less, but rather doing more of what truly matters. It's about becoming more mindful of how we spend our time, how we engage with the world, and how we care for ourselves. When we slow down, we give ourselves the opportunity to focus on the things that bring us peace and joy, rather than rushing from one task to the next without thought or intention. This might mean taking time to savor a meal, to listen more deeply when someone speaks, or to be fully present in the moment without the constant urge to check our phones or multitask. By slowing down, we cultivate a deeper sense of connection with ourselves and the world around us. We stop living in autopilot mode and begin to experience life more fully, appreciating the small details that often go unnoticed in the rush of everyday existence. Another aspect of living slower is learning to let go of the constant pressure to be busy. We often equate busyness with success or worth, but the reality is that true fulfillment comes not from how much we do, but from how deeply we engage with the things that matter. When we slow down, we give ourselves permission to say no to things that drain us, and yes to things that nourish our souls. We prioritize quality over quantity and focus on the present moment, rather than constantly striving for the next thing. In a world that often values speed and efficiency, choosing to live slower is a radical act of self-care and self-respect. It's an invitation to step off the hamster wheel of constant doing and embrace the richness of simply being. By slowing down, we allow ourselves to experience the fullness of life, and in doing so, we create space for peace, joy, and quiet strength. Slowing down also has a profound impact on our mental health. When we are constantly rushing, our stress levels increase, and we become more susceptible to burnout, anxiety, and depression. By slowing down, we reduce the mental and emotional strain that comes from trying to do it all. We create space for rest, reflection, and rejuvenation, which are essential for maintaining a healthy mind and body. Slowing down allows us to recalibrate, to reset our internal compass, and to realign with our values and priorities. It's a reminder that we don't have to do everything at once, and that our worth is not determined by our busyness. When we embrace a slower pace, we honor our need for rest and recovery, and we make room for the peace and strength that come from living with intention. Letting go of comparison. In a world that constantly encourages comparison, it is all too easy to fall into the trap of measuring ourselves against others. Social media, advertisements, and cultural norms bombard us with images of what success, beauty, and happiness should look like. We are told that we must achieve a certain level of success, accumulate material wealth, and attain a particular image of perfection in order to be happy or fulfilled. As a result, we often find ourselves comparing our lives to others, feeling inadequate or inferior when we perceive that we are falling short. This constant comparison creates a sense of disconnection from our true selves and makes it difficult to experience the peace and quiet strength that comes from embracing who we are, just as we are. Letting go of comparison is one of the most liberating practices we can adopt on our journey to quiet strength. When we stop measuring ourselves against others, we free ourselves from the cycle of judgment and self-criticism that holds us back. We begin to appreciate our unique path, recognizing that our journey is not meant to mirror someone else's. Each of us is on a different timeline, with different strengths, challenges, and experiences. By letting go of comparison, we allow ourselves to embrace our individuality and honor our own growth and progress. We stop striving for an ideal that is not our own and start living in alignment with our true values and desires. This shift in perspective brings a deep sense of peace, as we no longer feel the need to compete or prove ourselves to others. Instead, we can focus on our own journey and trust that we are exactly where we need to be. Letting go of comparison also involves recognizing the power of gratitude. When we shift our focus from what we don't have to what we do have, we begin to see the abundance in our lives. Gratitude allows us to appreciate our own unique strengths, achievements, and blessings, rather than fixating on what others have or what we think we lack. By practicing gratitude, we cultivate a sense of contentment and satisfaction, which are essential for experiencing inner peace. Gratitude helps us to shift our focus from scarcity to abundance, from lack to fullness, and from competition to connection. When we are grateful for what we have, we stop comparing ourselves to others and start celebrating our own journey. Finally, letting go of comparison requires embracing self-acceptance. When we stop comparing ourselves to others, we can fully accept who we are, without judgment or criticism. We learn to love ourselves for our unique qualities, our flaws, and our strengths. This self-acceptance is a cornerstone of quiet strength, as it allows us to stand firm in who we are, without the need for validation or approval from others. When we embrace ourselves fully, we tap into an inner reservoir of peace, knowing that we are enough just as we are. Chapter 10. Designing a Peaceful Life, Simplifying Your Space. In the pursuit of peace, the external environment plays an essential role. The space we inhabit reflects our inner world, and if our surroundings are cluttered, chaotic, or overstimulated, it becomes difficult to cultivate the quiet strength we desire. One of the most transformative practices in creating a peaceful life is simplifying our space, removing the unnecessary, the overwhelming, and the distracting in order to make room for calm and clarity. This is not just about decluttering. It's about curating a space that supports our well-being, our creativity, and our sense of peace. When we simplify our environment, we create an atmosphere that allows us to breathe more easily, think more clearly, and feel more grounded in the present moment. Simplifying your space begins with a deep examination of what truly serves you. It requires taking a hard look at the physical items, as well as the people and experiences that make up your environment. What do you find yourself tripping over, both literally and metaphorically? Are there objects or possessions that drain your energy or add to your mental load? Often, we hold on to things out of habit or sentimentality, not realizing how much they weigh us down. By releasing the excess, the items that no longer serve us, we create space not only in our homes, but also in our minds. This process is about more than just clearing physical clutter. It's about creating room for clarity, for peace, and for the things that truly bring us joy and fulfillment. It's about making intentional choices, surrounding ourselves with only what is necessary and nourishing, and allowing our space to reflect the simplicity and beauty we long for in our lives. A simplified space also supports our emotional well-being. When our environment is tidy, organized, and aesthetically pleasing, it has a calming effect on our nervous system. The act of decluttering can be deeply therapeutic, as it allows us to regain control over our surroundings and feel more at ease in our own homes. It also makes it easier to find what we need, reducing the stress and frustration that often come with disorganization. As we simplify our space, we create an environment that nurtures our mental and emotional health, helping us to feel more peaceful, more centered, and more connected to the present moment. In a world that constantly bombards us with distractions and demands, simplifying our space offers us the opportunity to retreat into a sanctuary of calm, a place where we can truly relax, recharge, and reconnect with ourselves. Ultimately, simplifying your space is about choosing quality over quantity, intention over accumulation. By curating your environment thoughtfully, you create a space that supports the kind of life you want to live, one that is rooted in peace, serenity, and purpose. This practice not only helps to reduce external noise, but it also helps you cultivate a quieter, more peaceful internal world. When we make our space a reflection of our values and desires, we set the stage for a life that is aligned with our deepest needs and aspirations. In doing so, we create an oasis of calm in which we can thrive, grow, and experience the quiet strength that comes from living with intention. Creating peaceful rituals. Rituals are the threads that weave meaning and structure into our daily lives. They provide a sense of stability and continuity, grounding us in the present moment and helping us reconnect with ourselves and the world around us. When life feels overwhelming or chaotic, rituals offer us a way to slow down, center ourselves, and experience peace. A peaceful ritual is not just an action or routine, but a deliberate practice designed to foster calm, connection, and mindfulness. Whether it's a morning cup of tea, a quiet walk in nature, or a simple moment of reflection before bed, rituals serve as anchors in our day, helping us to reconnect with our inner selves and create a sense of peace amidst the noise. The power of rituals lies in their ability to ground us in the present moment. In a world that is constantly moving and changing, rituals provide a sense of constancy, offering us a space to pause, breathe, and refocus. When we engage in a ritual, we are not just going through the motions. We are creating a moment of intentionality, of stillness, and of connection. These moments allow us to center ourselves, to reset our minds, and to find peace within. Rituals can be as simple as lighting a candle before meditation, or as complex as an elaborate evening routine designed to wind down after a busy day. The key is not the complexity of the ritual, but the intention behind it. When we approach rituals with mindfulness and presence, they become a powerful tool for cultivating peace and quiet strength in our lives. Creating peaceful rituals also helps us to establish a sense of routine, which is essential for maintaining a balanced and grounded life. When we make time for rituals, we carve out moments of self-care and self-reflection that nourish our mental, emotional, and physical well-being. These rituals become a way to honor ourselves and our needs, providing us with a sense of stability and security in an otherwise chaotic world. Rituals also help us create a sense of closure and transition between different parts of our day. For example, a morning ritual might help us start the day with clarity and intention, while an evening ritual allows us to wind down and reflect on the day's events. By creating peaceful rituals, we can structure our lives in a way that supports our well-being and fosters a sense of calm and peace. The beauty of rituals is that they can be tailored to fit our individual needs and preferences. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to creating rituals. It's about discovering what works for you and what brings you peace. Perhaps it's a moment of stillness before getting out of bed, or a ritual bath to relax your body and mind. It might be a journaling practice, a short meditation, or even a daily walk. The key is consistency. By making rituals a regular part of our day, we create habits that support our mental and emotional health. These rituals become the foundation of a peaceful life, helping us to stay grounded, centered, and connected to the present moment, no matter what else is happening in our lives. Choosing peace over perfection. In the modern world, there is often an unspoken pressure to be perfect. We are told that we must have it all together. Our careers, our relationships, our appearance, every aspect of our lives must meet a certain standard of perfection. This pressure to be perfect can lead to constant striving, dissatisfaction, and a sense of inadequacy. But the truth is, perfection is an illusion. It is a never-ending pursuit that leaves us feeling exhausted, frustrated, and disconnected from our true selves. In order to cultivate quiet strength, we must let go of the need for perfection and choose peace instead. Choosing peace over perfection is about embracing the messiness of life, accepting ourselves as we are, and finding contentment in the present moment. Choosing peace over perfection requires us to challenge the unrealistic expectations we place on ourselves. It means letting go of the need to meet every external standard and instead focusing on what truly matters to us. Perfectionism often stems from fear: the fear of failure, the fear of judgment, or the fear of not being good enough. But when we choose peace, we release these fears and accept ourselves as we are, flaws and all. We recognize that life is not about being perfect. It is about being present, being authentic, and being kind to ourselves. By letting go of the need for perfection, we create space for peace and tranquility, knowing that we are enough just as we are. Choosing peace over perfection also means embracing imperfection in others. When we let go of perfectionism, we become more compassionate toward others, recognizing that they too are imperfect beings on their own unique journeys. We stop holding others to impossible standards and start accepting them for who they are, just as we hope to be accepted ourselves. This shift in perspective fosters a sense of connection, empathy, and understanding, allowing us to build deeper, more meaningful relationships with those around us. By choosing peace over perfection, we create an environment of acceptance and support where both ourselves and others can thrive without the pressure to be flawless. In practice, choosing peace over perfection might mean letting go of the pursuit of external validation. It means finding contentment in the simple, imperfect moments of life, whether it's enjoying a quiet morning, spending time with loved ones, or pursuing a passion without the pressure to be the best. It's about celebrating progress, not perfection, and recognizing that life's true beauty lies in its imperfections. When we choose peace over perfection, we release the burden of constant striving and instead embrace the quiet strength that comes from being fully present, fully alive, and fully ourselves. Chapter 11. Embracing discomfort. Silently sitting with difficult emotions. In the pursuit of quiet strength, one of the most profound practices is learning to sit with discomfort. In a world that relentlessly encourages us to avoid pain, discomfort, and difficult emotions, we are often taught to escape, numb, or suppress the feelings that arise within us. But true peace doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from the willingness to sit with it, to be present with the emotions that arise, and to allow ourselves the space to process them without judgment. When we learn to sit with our difficult emotions, we stop seeing them as threats to our peace and begin to view them as part of our human experience, emotions that, though painful, are not insurmountable. Rather than running from them, we sit still, breathe deeply, and allow them to exist within us, knowing that all emotions are temporary and that they will pass. This practice is not about denying the difficulty of the feelings, but rather about acknowledging their presence, allowing them to unfold, and ultimately finding peace in their impermanence. Sitting with difficult emotions requires a level of bravery and self-compassion that many of us aren't accustomed to practicing. It calls us to face what we have long avoided, to feel the pain, sadness, anger, or fear that may have been pushed aside for too long. But in doing so, we learn something profoundly important about ourselves. We learn that we are capable of experiencing discomfort without it destroying us. When we allow ourselves to fully feel our emotions without rushing to escape them, we reclaim our power. We begin to realize that emotions in their rawest form are not to be feared. They are simply energy moving through us, informing us of our needs, desires, and boundaries. Sitting with these emotions allows us to process them fully, to understand them, and to release them when they no longer serve us. In doing so, we free ourselves from the cycle of emotional repression and denial that can keep us stuck in a perpetual state of internal conflict. The practice of sitting with difficult emotions also fosters greater emotional intelligence. When we allow ourselves to feel fully without judgment or shame, we learn to identify and understand the root causes of our emotions. We become more attuned to our inner world, recognizing patterns in our emotional responses and developing a deeper awareness of what triggers us. This self-awareness allows us to navigate future challenges with more clarity and resilience. We are no longer at the mercy of our emotions. Instead, we learn to understand them, to process them, and to integrate them into our lives in a way that supports our overall well-being. By sitting with discomfort, we cultivate a profound inner strength, a quiet strength that allows us to face the inevitable challenges of life with greater grace, confidence, and self-compassion. Strength through still endurance. Endurance is often misunderstood as sheer willpower or physical stamina. However, the true power of endurance lies not in the act of pushing through pain or discomfort, but in the ability to remain present, still and calm in the face of adversity. Strength through still endurance is a practice of maintaining composure, peace, and presence even when life is not easy. It is the ability to endure hardship without being consumed by it, to face challenges without allowing them to dictate our emotional state or behavior. This kind of endurance is not about forcing ourselves to endure suffering. It is about learning how to remain grounded and centered in the midst of life's storms, without becoming overwhelmed or reactive. True strength through endurance is born of quiet resilience. It is the power to stay still, breathe deeply, and trust that, just like emotions, difficult moments will eventually pass. In our fast-paced, achievement-driven society, endurance is often associated with relentless effort, long hours, and the will to push through exhaustion. But the endurance that leads to quiet strength is quite different. It is not about striving or forcing. It is about maintaining stillness in the face of challenge. It's about knowing when to take a step back, when to pause and breathe, and when to honor the limits of our energy and resources. In this way, still endurance is not about resistance, but rather about acceptance. It's about accepting the discomfort, the uncertainty, and the challenges that come our way, and facing them with an open heart and a calm mind. It's about trusting in our inner strength and knowing that we are capable of navigating any storm, no matter how fierce. This form of endurance requires a deep understanding of our own capacity for stillness, patience, and acceptance. It is an endurance that doesn't require us to do more, but rather to be more present, more aware, more compassionate with ourselves as we navigate the inevitable challenges of life. Strength through still endurance is a quiet power that can often go unnoticed. In a world that celebrates noise, achievement, and constant motion, still endurance is a subtle force that carries a quiet yet profound impact. It's the person who remains calm and composed during a crisis, the one who chooses to stay grounded even in moments of deep uncertainty. It's the ability to find peace in the chaos, to remain present with the discomfort, and to trust that everything will unfold as it should. Strength through still endurance is not a force that imposes itself on others. It is a quiet, internal force that radiates calm and steadiness. It inspires others not through loud proclamations, but through the simple example of being unwavering in the face of hardship. It's a reminder that true strength doesn't have to be loud. It can be found in the quiet, enduring presence that we bring to each moment, no matter how difficult it may be. Growth in the quiet seasons. Growth is often associated with action, with movement, and with the external signs of progress. But in reality, some of the most significant growth occurs in the quiet, still moments of our lives, in the seasons of rest, reflection, and introspection. These quiet seasons may feel uncomfortable or even unproductive at times, but they are often the most fertile ground for personal transformation. It is during these times of stillness that we are able to turn inward, to assess our lives, and to cultivate the seeds of growth that will later blossom into new opportunities, insights, and understandings. Growth in the quiet seasons may not be immediately apparent, but it is essential to trust that, just like the soil beneath the surface of the earth, the work of growth is happening quietly and steadily beneath the surface. The quiet seasons of life are often misunderstood as periods of stagnation or inactivity, but in reality, they are some of the most important times for self-discovery and growth. These are the times when we have the space to reflect, to process, and to release the old patterns, beliefs, and behaviors that no longer serve us. They are the times when we are invited to reconnect with our deepest desires and values, to reassess our goals, and to realign ourselves with our true purpose. Growth in these quiet seasons may not come with fanfare or applause, but it is often the most meaningful kind of growth, the kind that happens on the inside, in the quiet depths of our hearts and minds. It is the growth that arises when we stop pushing, stop striving, and allow ourselves the time and space to simply be. By embracing the quiet seasons, we learn to trust that growth doesn't always have to be loud or visible. It can be slow, subtle, and deeply transformative. When we embrace growth in the quiet seasons, we also learn the importance of patience and trust. We trust that the work we are doing, even if it feels invisible or inconsequential at the moment, is laying the foundation for future growth. We understand that just as a seed must be planted in the dark earth before it can sprout into the light, our own personal growth must sometimes be nurtured in the quiet, unseen moments of our lives. These quiet seasons teach us that growth is not always about doing more, achieving more, or becoming more. Sometimes, growth is simply about allowing ourselves the time and space to heal, to rest, and to reflect. It is about honoring the natural rhythms of our lives and trusting that, in time, the quiet work we are doing will manifest in profound and meaningful ways. Chapter 12. The Quiet Leader Influence Without Intimidation. Leadership is often equated with loudness, authority, and the ability to command attention. But the most powerful form of leadership is subtle, understated, and rooted in quiet influence. A quiet leader does not rely on intimidation, forceful rhetoric, or dominating presence to inspire others. Instead, they lead by example, by their presence, and by their ability to cultivate trust, respect, and understanding within their teams or communities. The quiet leader recognizes that true influence is not about imposing one's will on others, but about creating an environment where people feel heard, valued, and empowered. This kind of leadership is not loud or showy. It is grounded in humility, empathy, and authenticity. The quiet leader understands that influence is best achieved through listening, understanding, and serving others, rather than through domination or control. One of the most powerful aspects of quiet leadership is the ability to lead with emotional intelligence. Quiet leaders are adept at reading the emotional landscape of a room, sensing the needs and concerns of others, and responding in ways that foster connection and collaboration. They do not need to raise their voices to make their point or demand respect. Instead, they build relationships based on trust, empathy, and mutual respect. By taking the time to understand the perspectives of others, quiet leaders create a space where everyone feels heard and valued. This allows them to build strong, cohesive teams that work together towards a common goal, where each individual's contribution is recognized and appreciated. Quiet leadership is not about controlling others. It's about empowering them to be their best selves, to contribute their unique strengths, and to work together in harmony towards a shared vision. In the modern world, where loud, charismatic leaders often dominate the spotlight, the quiet leader may seem like an anomaly. Yet, this form of leadership is not only effective, it is deeply transformative. Quiet leaders inspire others not through their forceful presence, but through their unwavering commitment to integrity, empathy, and service. They are not interested in being the center of attention. Instead, they focus on lifting others up, encouraging them to reach their full potential, and creating an environment where collaboration, trust, and mutual respect thrive. In this way, quiet leadership is more than just a leadership style. It is a philosophy that shapes the way leaders engage with the world and with those they lead. It is a reminder that leadership does not require loudness or dominance. It requires a deep sense of presence, compassion, and a commitment to serving others. Building trust through presence. Trust is the foundation of any successful relationship, whether personal or professional. And one of the most powerful ways to build trust is through presence. A quiet leader understands the importance of being fully present in every moment, giving their undivided attention to those they are engaging with, and showing a genuine interest in their thoughts, feelings, and needs. In a world filled with distractions and constant noise, the ability to truly be present with someone is an incredibly rare and valuable gift. When a leader is present, when they listen attentively, respond thoughtfully, and offer their full attention, they create an environment where trust can flourish. People feel seen, heard, and valued, and this sense of connection fosters loyalty, respect, and a willingness to follow the leader's guidance. Building trust through presence requires patience, empathy, and the ability to hold space for others. It is not about rushing to offer solutions or fix problems. It is about creating a safe, supportive environment where people can express themselves freely, knowing that they will be listened to and respected. A quiet leader understands that trust is built over time through consistent actions that demonstrate integrity, reliability, and care. It is not enough to simply say that one is trustworthy. It must be demonstrated through actions that show a deep commitment to the well-being of others. This can be as simple as taking the time to listen attentively, offering support when needed, and consistently showing up with authenticity and humility. When a leader is present in this way, trust is cultivated naturally, and the people they lead feel confident in their ability to follow, knowing that their leader has their best interests at heart. Presence is also about being emotionally available to others. A quiet leader does not shy away from difficult conversations or uncomfortable emotions. Instead, they are willing to engage with others in a way that acknowledges and validates their feelings. This emotional availability builds a deeper connection between the leader and those they lead, allowing for more honest, open communication and greater understanding. It also allows the leader to better navigate challenges as they are attuned to the emotional needs of their team and can respond in ways that foster resolution and healing. By building trust through presence, quiet leaders create a culture of openness, collaboration, and mutual respect where people feel safe to be themselves and work together towards common goals. Servant leadership and humility. At the heart of quiet leadership lies the concept of servant leadership, the idea that a leader's primary role is to serve the people they lead, rather than to be served by them. Servant leadership is grounded in humility, selflessness, and a commitment to the well-being of others. A quiet leader understands that leadership is not about seeking power, recognition, or control. It is about putting the needs of others first and empowering them to achieve their fullest potential. In this way, servant leadership is the antithesis of traditional hierarchical leadership models that emphasize authority and dominance. Instead of positioning themselves above others, the servant leader positions themselves alongside their team, working together with them to achieve shared goals. This leadership style fosters a sense of community, collaboration, and mutual respect, as everyone is treated with dignity and encouraged to contribute their unique skills and talents. Humility is a cornerstone of servant leadership. A quiet leader does not seek the spotlight or try to prove their worth through grand gestures or displays of power. Instead, they lead by example, demonstrating a deep sense of humility and self-awareness. They are not concerned with their own status or accolades, but are focused on the success and well-being of their team. This humility allows them to build strong, trusting relationships with those they lead, as people are more likely to follow a leader who is grounded, approachable, and willing to listen. A humble leader is also open to feedback, recognizing that they do not have all the answers and that the wisdom of others is invaluable. This openness to feedback fosters a culture of continuous learning and growth, where everyone feels empowered to contribute their ideas and insights. Servant leadership also requires a deep sense of empathy. A quiet leader is attuned to the needs and emotions of those around them, and they are willing to go the extra mile to support others in their personal and professional growth. They do not see themselves as above others. Instead, they view their role as one of service, helping others to succeed and thrive. This mindset shifts the focus from individual achievement to collective success, creating a sense of shared purpose and commitment among the team. Servant leadership is a reminder that true leadership is not about asserting control or demanding obedience. It is about lifting others up, supporting them in their journey, and fostering an environment where everyone can flourish. Chapter 13. A Gentle Revolution. The cultural shift towards soft power. In today's fast-paced world, power is often equated with dominance, aggression, and forceful action. The loudest voices seem to be the ones that get the most attention, while the quiet, steady approach is often overlooked or misunderstood. However, the quiet strength we've discussed in the previous chapters is slowly beginning to shift the cultural tide. A revolution is underway, not one of loud protests or violent upheaval, but a gentle revolution where the power of soft leadership, calm influence, and quiet strength is being recognized as the way forward. This movement is not about negating the power of loud voices, but about bringing balance to a world that has long overemphasized strength in terms of force and noise. In many cultures, especially in the corporate and political worlds, leadership has been synonymous with dominance, asserting one's position, making bold decisions, and taking charge in ways that leave little room for collaboration or humility. Yet, as we witness the rise of mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and compassion as critical leadership traits, the true power of quiet strength is beginning to emerge. It is not the absence of power, but a redefinition of it. Soft power, the ability to influence and lead with empathy, wisdom, and understanding, is becoming an indispensable asset in today's world. This cultural shift towards soft power reflects a broader understanding that true leadership is not about imposing one's will on others, but about inspiring, guiding, and supporting others toward a collective vision. This is the essence of a gentle revolution, a quiet movement that is slowly but steadily transforming how we view power, leadership, and influence. As the world grows more interconnected, with global issues requiring cooperation and collaboration rather than confrontation, soft power is gaining traction. Leaders who can navigate the complexities of human emotions, who can listen and respond with understanding, and who can build bridges instead of walls, are becoming the role models for future generations. This shift is not just happening in politics, but in businesses, schools, communities, and families. The loud, charismatic leader who commands attention with force is now being complemented, perhaps even replaced, by leaders who demonstrate their authority through kindness, patience, and humility. The quiet leader who takes the time to understand the needs of their followers, who cultivates trust through consistency and reliability, is the one who earns respect in the long run. It's a world where influence is not gained by dominating others, but by empowering them to be their best selves. This is a slow but revolutionary change that is quietly transforming cultures across the globe. The future, it seems, belongs to those who can lead with gentleness, who can wield power with empathy, and who can inspire others through the strength of their quiet resolve. The cultural shift towards soft power is, indeed, a gentle revolution, one that is reshaping how we understand leadership and influence in a profoundly meaningful way. Why the world needs quiet leaders. In a world that is increasingly noisy and chaotic, there is an undeniable need for leaders who can remain calm, grounded, and composed in the face of uncertainty. Quiet leaders, those who lead by example and through emotional intelligence rather than by command, are more crucial than ever. The need for quiet leaders comes from the realization that our traditional models of leadership, those based on extroversion, competition, and constant action, are no longer sufficient to address the complex challenges we face. In an age where stress, burnout, and disconnection are rampant, what the world needs are leaders who can create spaces of peace, mindfulness, and emotional safety. The world needs leaders who can listen deeply, understand the nuances of human experience, and offer guidance that is grounded in empathy and compassion. Quiet leaders understand that leadership is not about standing in front of others, but about being present with them. They know that their role is not to dictate or command, but to inspire, to hold space for others' voices, and to offer wisdom when needed. This type of leadership fosters collaboration, builds trust, and creates environments where individuals feel seen, heard, and supported. It is leadership that nurtures rather than dominates, empowers rather than controls. The world today is filled with noise, constant information, competing voices, and pressures to move faster, do more, and be better. In such an environment, quiet leaders provide a necessary counterbalance. They offer a space for reflection, clarity, and intentional action. Quiet leaders do not rush into decisions based on impulse or emotion. Instead, they take the time to pause, to assess the situation, and to make thoughtful, well-considered choices. This deliberate approach is what sets quiet leaders apart from their more overt counterparts. They are not reactive but responsive, able to take in information, reflect on it, and act in a way that is calm, focused, and intentional. This quality is incredibly valuable in today's world, where hasty decisions can have far-reaching consequences. Quiet leaders have the ability to navigate complexity with grace, to find solutions in challenging circumstances, and to maintain a sense of balance even when the world around them seems to be spiraling out of control. The world needs quiet leaders not because they are absent, but because they are present in ways that others are not. They are the calm in the storm, the steady hand guiding others through turbulent times. They lead not by force, but by their ability to create environments where peace, clarity, and collaboration can thrive. This need for quiet leadership is not only relevant in times of crisis, but also in times of peace and prosperity. Quiet leaders are able to inspire innovation, foster collaboration, and encourage personal and professional growth in a way that is rooted in trust and respect. They understand that leadership is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process that requires patience, listening, and adaptability. Quiet leaders do not rely on status, hierarchy, or external validation to lead. Instead, they are grounded in a deep sense of purpose and integrity. They are authentic, vulnerable, and approachable, qualities that make them not only effective leaders, but also compassionate human beings. In a world where many feel disconnected and unheard, quiet leaders offer a source of stability, guidance, and support. They remind us that leadership is not about making the most noise or being the loudest voice in the room, but about creating space for others to shine. The world desperately needs more leaders who can lead with humility, with quiet strength, and with a deep commitment to the well-being of others. Living as an example of peace. One of the most profound aspects of quiet leadership is the ability to live as an example of the values you espouse. A quiet leader is not someone who simply gives orders or delivers speeches about peace, empathy, or mindfulness. They embody these qualities in their own lives. They live in alignment with their values, and through their actions, they show others what it means to lead with peace. Living as an example of peace means being a living testament to the power of quiet strength. It means choosing calm in the face of chaos, embracing compassion even when it is difficult, and demonstrating patience and understanding even when the world around you is impatient. Quiet leaders do not ask others to do things they are unwilling to do themselves. They show through their own behavior what it means to be a person of peace in a world that often values noise, conflict, and speed. This embodiment of peace is one of the most powerful tools of influence a leader can possess. It is an invitation for others to follow, not because they have been told to, but because they have seen the difference it makes in the life of the leader themselves. Living as an example of peace is not about being perfect. It is about being authentic. Quiet leaders acknowledge their imperfections, embrace their vulnerability, and allow others to see them as human beings, not just as authority figures. They show that it is okay to make mistakes, to learn and to grow. They create space for others to do the same. This authenticity is what makes quiet leaders so powerful. People are drawn to them because they are real, approachable, and grounded. They are not performing a role or putting on a facade. They are simply living out their values in every aspect of their lives. In doing so, they inspire others to do the same. The quiet leader becomes a living example of what it means to live with peace, grace, and integrity in a world that often encourages the opposite. Through their example, they demonstrate that true leadership is not about exerting power over others, but about leading with love, respect, and quiet strength. This is the essence of living as an example of peace, and it is the most profound form of leadership anyone can offer. Chapter 14. Your Quiet Legacy, What You Leave Behind. We often think about legacy as something grand, something that requires monumental achievements, public recognition, and a lasting mark on the world. We imagine legacies as towering monuments, visible for all to see, celebrated for their impact, and admired for their scope. However, the legacy you leave behind is not just determined by the size of your achievements, but by the essence of how you lived your life and the values you imparted to others. Quiet strength is not about leaving behind a trail of fame, accolades, or outward recognition. Instead, it's about leaving behind a legacy of compassion, wisdom, and integrity. It is about the quiet impact you make in the lives of those around you, the ripple effects of your actions and words that spread far beyond your immediate sphere of influence. Your quiet legacy is the combination of your actions, your values, and the way you made others feel in their moments of need. It is the way you quietly supported others when they were struggling, the way you gave space for others to grow, the way you inspired without demanding attention or praise. This legacy, although subtle, is perhaps the most lasting and meaningful one. It is the legacy that endures in the hearts of those who were touched by your gentleness and strength. It is not measured by the world's standards of success, but by the depth of your kindness, the authenticity of your leadership, and the unwavering peace you embodied throughout your life. This quiet legacy might be evident in the relationships you cultivate, the way you inspire others to be their best selves, or the unspoken influence you have in creating an environment where peace, understanding, and compassion thrive. It is reflected in the way you show up for others in times of distress, in the way you remain calm in the midst of chaos, and in the way you lead with humility rather than ego. Your legacy, therefore, is not a matter of public recognition or personal glory. It's the subtle impact that continues to reverberate in the lives of those who were privileged enough to experience it. It may not be obvious in the moment, but over time, as people reflect on their interactions with you, the lessons you taught and the presence you provided, your quiet strength will leave an indelible mark on their hearts. In the end, the greatest legacy you can leave is not one of personal achievement or outward success, but the legacy of a life lived with intention, purpose, and a quiet yet powerful strength that transcends the noise of the world. Becoming a beacon of calm. In a world that often feels like it's spinning out of control, the need for calmness is greater than ever. People are seeking refuge from the noise, the distractions, and the demands of everyday life. In the midst of this turbulence, you have the opportunity to become a beacon of calm, a steady presence that helps others find their way back to peace. Becoming a beacon of calm is not about being perfect or having all the answers. Rather, it is about being present, centered, and grounded in the midst of uncertainty. It is about showing others that peace is not something to be achieved only in quiet, isolated moments, but something that can be embodied and carried with us no matter the circumstances. When you live as a beacon of calm, you radiate a sense of tranquility that others can feel, even in the most chaotic situations. Your presence becomes a source of comfort for those who are overwhelmed, a reminder that amidst the noise of the world, there is still space for peace and serenity. This process of becoming a beacon of calm begins with cultivating peace within yourself. It's about developing the tools to manage your own emotions, to stay centered amidst external pressures, and to maintain clarity in moments of stress. It involves creating a sense of inner balance where your thoughts and emotions are not ruled by external circumstances, but are anchored in your values and purpose. As you cultivate this inner calm, you naturally become an example to others. People are drawn to those who exude peace because, in a world full of uncertainty, peace is a rare and precious gift. By embodying calm, you give others permission to find their own peace, and in doing so, you help to create a ripple effect of tranquility that extends far beyond you. Your calmness becomes a source of inspiration for those around you, encouraging them to slow down, to listen to their own inner voices, and to reclaim a sense of balance in their lives. In this way, becoming a beacon of calm is not just about you. It's about creating a ripple of peace that spreads through your community, your relationships, and even the wider world. The impact of becoming a beacon of calm is far-reaching. It influences how you interact with others, how you handle conflict, and how you navigate life's inevitable challenges. When you approach difficult situations with a calm demeanor, you provide others with a model of how to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. In the face of anger, frustration, or confusion, your calmness offers a reminder that we have the power to choose how we respond. You become an anchor for those around you, someone who can steady the ship in the storm. And in doing so, you help others find their own anchor, their own source of strength. This is the essence of becoming a beacon of calm. It is about radiating peace from within, and in doing so, helping others reconnect with their own inner peace. Daily habits that cultivate peace. Building a life of quiet strength and becoming a beacon of calm is not something that happens overnight. It requires intention, commitment, and consistent practice. The daily habits you cultivate play a significant role in shaping your ability to maintain peace, both within yourself and in your interactions with others. These habits become the foundation upon which your quiet strength is built, and over time, they help you navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. One of the most essential habits for cultivating peace is mindfulness. Mindfulness involves being fully present in the moment, paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, and sensations without judgment. It is about learning to slow down and become more aware of the present moment, rather than getting lost in the distractions of the past or future. Through mindfulness, you develop the ability to respond to life's challenges with greater clarity and calmness, rather than reacting impulsively or out of habit. This practice can take many forms, from simply pausing to take a deep breath when you feel stressed, to engaging in meditation or mindful walking. The key is to make mindfulness a daily habit, so that over time, it becomes second nature to approach life with a sense of awareness and presence. Another important habit for cultivating peace is gratitude. Taking time each day to reflect on the things you are grateful for helps to shift your focus away from what is lacking or stressful in your life, and instead brings attention to the abundance and beauty that already exists. Gratitude has the power to transform your mindset, allowing you to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles. When you practice gratitude regularly, you begin to see the world through a lens of appreciation, which in turn helps to foster a sense of peace and contentment. Gratitude also strengthens your connections with others, as it encourages you to recognize and acknowledge the positive contributions people make to your life. By incorporating gratitude into your daily routine, you create a habit of looking for the good, even in the midst of difficulties. Finally, taking time for self-care is an essential habit for cultivating peace. Self-care involves prioritizing your physical, emotional, and mental well-being, ensuring that you have the energy and resilience needed to face life's demands. This can include regular exercise, eating nourishing foods, getting enough rest, and engaging in activities that bring you joy and relaxation. By taking care of yourself, you replenish your inner resources and create a strong foundation for maintaining peace in your life. Self-care is not selfish. It is an essential practice for ensuring that you have the capacity to give to others without depleting yourself. When you prioritize self-care, you are better able to handle stress, navigate challenges, and show up as your best self in all areas of your life. Incorporating these daily habits, mindfulness, gratitude, and self-care into your life will help you cultivate a sense of peace that is both deep and enduring. These practices are not one-time solutions, but ongoing habits that, when practiced consistently, become a natural part of your life. They support your journey toward becoming a person of quiet strength and a beacon of calm for those around you. As you build these habits into your daily routine, you create a life that is grounded in peace, allowing you to navigate the ups and downs of life with grace, resilience, and clarity. Chapter 15. The ongoing journey of quiet strength growth without an end point. The journey toward embodying quiet strength is not one marked by a final destination, a triumphant finish line, or a moment of definitive arrival. It is a path that continues to unfold with each passing day, each breath, and each experience you encounter. True growth, the kind that is rooted in stillness and resilience, does not end. It evolves. Every season of life offers new opportunities to deepen your calm, to refine your presence, and to strengthen the inner sanctuary you have so carefully built. There will be times when you feel as though you have mastered the art of peace, only to find yourself challenged anew by unforeseen turbulence. There will be seasons of ease when serenity flows naturally, and others where maintaining inner quiet feels like climbing a steep, unending hill. Both are part of the journey. Both are necessary. Quiet strength is not about perfection. It is about commitment. It is about waking up every day with the willingness to choose peace over reaction, mindfulness over impulse, compassion over judgment. It is about understanding that even setbacks are not failures, but opportunities to practice and refine the art of inner stillness. Each moment you choose to act from a place of groundedness, even when it feels difficult or unnatural, is a step forward in your ongoing growth. The beautiful truth is that there is no ceiling to your expansion. As long as you are alive, there is room for more patience, more empathy, more wisdom, more grace. Your journey of quiet strength will weave itself into the very fabric of your life, shaping not only who you are, but how you experience the world and how the world experiences you. Moreover, growth in quiet strength involves deepening your trust in the unseen, the intangible rewards that are not celebrated with applause or trophies, but are felt in the profound satisfaction of living in alignment with your truest self. It is about savoring the moments when you respond to frustration with kindness, when you listen instead of interrupt, when you remain anchored while others are swept away by emotion. These seemingly small victories are not insignificant. They are the foundation of a life well lived. As you continue on this path, you will begin to notice that your experience of the world changes. Noise no longer dictates your emotions. External chaos no longer shakes your core. You become less reactive and more intentional, less hurried and more deliberate. You find joy in the simplest of moments, solace in the spaces between activities, and profound meaning in the act of simply being. This is the ongoing journey of quiet strength, a never-ending deepening, a continual unfolding, an eternal dance between the outer world and your inner sanctuary. There is no end point, and therein lies the beauty. Your life itself becomes the art, the masterpiece, created not by grand gestures, but by countless small, intentional acts of presence, patience, and love. Staying rooted amidst change. One of the greatest tests of quiet strength is the ability to stay rooted when everything around you is shifting. Change is an inevitable part of life, often arriving uninvited and unannounced. Relationships evolve, careers take unexpected turns, health fluctuates, societal landscapes shift, and the very foundations you once relied upon may crumble or transform. In the face of such uncertainty, it is tempting to grasp for control, to panic, to resist the natural flow of life, but true quiet strength lies in the ability to remain steady amidst the winds of change, to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing your core essence. This rootedness is not about stubbornly clinging to what was. It is about standing firmly in who you are, even as the world around you shifts. It is about trusting that the same strength that carried you through past storms will carry you through the ones to come. When you are deeply rooted in your values, your purpose, and your inner peace, change loses its power to destabilize you. It may still be uncomfortable, even painful at times, but it does not shatter you. Instead, it becomes another chapter in the rich, evolving story of your life. Staying rooted amidst change requires intentional practices that ground you in the present moment. Mindfulness becomes not just a tool, but a lifeline, returning to the breath, to the sensations of the body, to the simple act of noticing what is, helps to anchor you when the future feels uncertain. Reflection becomes vital, taking time to reconnect with your core values, to remind yourself of what truly matters, to assess not just where life is pulling you, but where you wish to go. Community too plays a role. Leaning into trusted relationships, seeking support, and allowing yourself to be vulnerable can provide the strength needed to weather transitions. Yet, at the deepest level, staying rooted amidst change is about cultivating an inner trust. A trust in your own resilience, in the wisdom life has already cultivated within you, and in the belief that even amidst loss and uncertainty, you are still whole, you are still strong, you are still enough. Change, rather than a force to be feared, becomes a teacher, a catalyst for deeper growth, a reminder that your quiet strength is not tied to circumstances, but to the very essence of who you are. The trees offer a beautiful metaphor for this kind of rootedness. Above ground, they sway with the wind, adapting to the seasons, shedding leaves, enduring storms. Yet beneath the surface, their roots dig deep into the earth, anchoring them in a source of nourishment and stability that is invisible to the eye. So it is with you. Your practices of mindfulness, reflection, and intentional living deepen your roots, making you resilient in the face of change. You are able to bend with life's winds without breaking, able to adapt without losing yourself. In this way, you not only survive change, you are transformed by it, growing ever stronger, ever wiser, ever more anchored in the quiet strength that defines your true self. Choosing peace. Every day, at the heart of the ongoing journey of quiet strength is a simple yet profound truth. Peace is a choice. It is not something that simply happens to you when circumstances are perfect, when others behave exactly as you wish, or when all external chaos subsides. Rather, it is a decision you make over and over again, often in the most challenging of moments. It is the choice to respond rather than react, to listen rather than speak hastily, to trust rather than fear, to forgive rather than harbor resentment. It is the choice to prioritize your inner well-being over the fleeting satisfaction of winning an argument or proving a point. Choosing peace is not always easy. It often requires tremendous courage, humility, and discipline. But with each deliberate choice, you strengthen the muscle of your quiet strength, making it more natural and accessible over time. Choosing peace every day begins the moment you open your eyes in the morning. It is reflected in how you greet the day, how you care for yourself, and how you interact with others. It shows up in the way you manage your time, setting boundaries that protect your energy, and in the way you consume information, choosing to engage with media and conversations that uplift rather than agitate your spirit. It manifests in the way you navigate challenges, not by denying your emotions, but by allowing yourself to feel them fully without being overwhelmed or consumed by them. Peace is chosen in the small moments, the pause before responding to a critical comment, the deep breath before entering a stressful meeting, the decision to take a walk rather than scroll mindlessly through your phone. These small choices, repeated daily, build a life that is anchored in peace rather than turmoil, in strength rather than reaction. Yet choosing peace does not mean avoiding conflict or discomfort. True peace often requires confronting difficult truths, setting firm boundaries, and engaging in hard conversations with clarity and compassion. It means standing up for your values without aggression, advocating for justice without hatred, and loving even when it is difficult. Choosing peace is not passive. It is an active, powerful stance that requires awareness, intentionality, and resilience. It is the quiet but unwavering refusal to allow external noise to dictate your internal state. Over time, this choice becomes not just an action, but a way of being, a deep, abiding presence that infuses every area of your life. It becomes the legacy you leave behind, the gift you offer to the world, the silent yet profound testimony to the transformative power of quiet strength. As you move forward from here, remember that each day offers a new opportunity to choose peace, to embody quiet strength, and to deepen your journey toward a life of meaning, resilience, and profound inner calm. The road will not always be easy, but it will be rich, rewarding, and transformative beyond measure. You are already walking this path simply by choosing to be here, to listen, to grow. Trust the journey. Embrace the unfolding, and know that your quiet strength is a beacon not just for yourself, but for a world that desperately needs the calm, the wisdom, and the love you have to offer.